What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 10 Chapter 316 Share the news for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 316 Share the news. Obviously, the other frost giants also had the same idea as Laufey, and approached Odin's position step by step. Although he looks like Odin, he is just a wise old man. But you must know that Odin is the father of the gods in the myth, and naturally he will not be as talkative as he appears on the surface. Therefore, after Laufey chose not to back down, Odin looked around with a calm expression, and then sighed softly. If that's the case, then do as you wish. You have to fight over there, Odin said in a very calm tone. Apparently the armistice between Jotunheim and Asgard ceased to exist after this incident. The frost giants around were already ready to move, so after Odin said this, all the frost giants rushed forward. War between the two nations is imminent, but Odin is clearly not a brainless brat like Thor. Although Odin is the father of the gods, but now the frost giants are more powerful, most of Odin's combat power is already very tired, and he can't insist on fighting at all. So Odin didn't want to confront the frost giant at this time, only to see Odin raised his scepter high, and then smashed to the ground. Immediately after, Uchiha Madara saw a very dazzling golden light flashing in front of him. Immediately after this burst of golden light surrounded Odin and others, and after the agency went up, Odin had long since disappeared with Thor and others. Those frost giants who were relatively close to Odin were probably shocked by the power radiated by Odin, and a large number of people fell directly to the ground. After seeing this scene, Uchiha Madara unconsciously became vigilant in his heart. It seems that he should be more careful when walking in the universe in the future. After all, Odin's strength doesn't seem to be at the peak at all, but even so, it is not something that ordinary people can resist. After seeing this scene, Uchiha Madara naturally reminded himself that there are people outside the world, and he must not be complacent. Now Odin had already left with the people, and Laufey was standing there angrily, watching the direction in which Odin disappeared, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Advertisement. I didn't think that I just randomly found a small planet and wanted to explore, and I witnessed such a good show. Now that the drama has come to an end, Uchiha Madara has no need to stay. After all, Uchiha Madara didn't really want to help Laufey, and went to the realm of Vice Admiral to snatch the treasure of the frost giant back. This matter has nothing to do with Uchiha Madara, and since Uchiha Madara will not stay here, he will soon leave. Meeting the characters in the mythology really gave Uchiha Madara a very big shock. After thinking for a while, Uchiha Madara was still ready to return to Earth now. With Uchiha Madara's current abilities, returning from Jotunheim to his beach house in Malibu is only a matter of seconds. After returning to the villa, Uchiha Madara found that the villa was very quiet, and only Jarvis expressed a warm welcome to his return. "Welcome back, sir, long time no see, you are getting more and more handsome." Jarvis's low and sweet voice sounded from Uchiha Madara's ears. Oh, hearing this, a faint smile appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. "Long time no see, Jarvis, Tony, where did they go?" Uchiha Madara glanced at the empty villa and asked curiously. "The Avenger seems to have something to do, sir, to deal with this matter," Jarvis replied. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara nodded knowingly. Although Tony had shown reluctance before, it seemed that he was enjoying getting along with Fury and others. After a few chats with Jarvis, Uchiha Madara quickly went to rest, and when Uchiha Madara woke up, he found that Tony was already waiting for him outside. It was obviously very happy to see Uchiha Madara back to Tony, showing great enthusiasm. After a few chats, Tony naturally asked about Uchiha Madara's travel gains this time. To be honest, Uchiha Madara would not have disclosed the news he got from this space travel, but the discovery this time is really scary. So after a moment of contemplation, Uchiha Madara still revealed some news, but it was not particularly clear. Advertisement. I think we should prepare early, there are planets higher than the Earth in the universe, Uchiha Madara said very seriously. Originally Dragon Yu was just chatting, but after hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Tony couldn't help showing a surprised expression. After all, in Tony's mind, Uchiha Madara at most went to some mysterious countries to play, never thought that the scope of the current map has been expanded to the universe. But after the surprise, Tony's face quickly turned serious. After all, Tony knows Uchiha Madara's character very well, and knows that if he hadn't seen something, Uchiha Madara wouldn't have said such a thing. Backquote. Then do you think those aliens are malicious to the Earth? Tony asked curiously. Although Uchiha Madara doesn't know whether these people want to get the Earth, but everything can be taken for granted. I don't know either, but conquest is something that everyone has in their bones, and we can't pin our hopes on the kindness of aliens, Uchiha Madara said calmly. Tony naturally understood the stakes involved, and his face gradually became serious after listening to Uchiha Madara's words. But even if Uchiha Madara and Tony understood it, it was too difficult to implement. After all, the current level of technology is far from being able to travel freely between the universes, Li Jiao. So if Uchiha Madara chooses to announce this matter now, others may think that Uchiha Madara is deliberately creating panic. To be honest, Tony is naturally very clear that there is no problem with Uchiha Madara's idea, but this matter is likely to be related to the survival of the entire Earth. So Tony couldn't keep his usual calmness, he could only look at Uchiha Madara with worry. Then what should we do now? Are we just watching and doing nothing? Tony's tone was full of urgency. But Uchiha Madara also knew that there was a reason for this, so she didn't get angry with Tony. Hearing this, A smile appeared on the Uchiha-like face unconsciously, and looked at Tony speechlessly. Isn't S.H.I.E.L.D. responsible for this? Are you still an advisor to the Avengers? Uchiha Madara said speechlessly. Chapter 317 Thor's Hammer for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 317 Thor's Hammer. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Tony's face showed a sudden realization, and then smiled slightly embarrassedly at Uchiha Madara. I was so anxious that I didn't remember it for a while. I'll go to Fury and tell him about it. Tony immediately stood up from his seat and said anxiously. To be honest, Uchiha Madara didn't know that Tony's character was in such a hurry, and looked at Tony dumbfounded. But this matter is very important, so Uchiha Madara did not stop Tony. Just before Tony left, Uchiha Madara stopped Tony very seriously. I know you're in a hurry, but this matter is very important, and you can't talk about it except Fury. Uchiha Madara's expression was unprecedentedly solemn. Although it seems unreliable, Tony is still very clear about the stakes, and nodded towards Uchiha Madara with a serious face. Don't worry, I will only tell Fury, and there is no evidence for this. Even if I say it, others will not take it seriously. Tony also said solemnly. Seeing that Tony knew what to do, Uchiha Madara stopped blocking Tony 560, nodded to Tony and let Tony leave. After Tony left, Uchiha Madara sighed inwardly. The Earth is just an insignificant planet in the vast universe, but I never imagined that there are so many threats out there waiting for me. And in fact, Uchiha Madara is very clear in his heart, even if he told Fury about this, he was powerless. After all, if nothing else to say, the frost giants that Uchiha Madara met and the characters in Norse mythology, the power they possess cannot be resisted by technology. It is estimated that this can be classified into the category of magic. No matter how advanced the technology is, it cannot prevent such an attack. Not long after Tony left, Uchiha Madara received a call from Fury and wanted to invite Uchiha Madara to discuss this matter carefully. If it were other things, Uchiha Madara naturally refused, but this matter is of great importance after all. Although even if the Earth is destroyed, Uchiha Madara can live very well in the universe. Advertisement. But after all, they are not their own homes, so after Fury made his request, AFBB, Uchiha Madara pondered for a moment and agreed. After arriving at S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury greeted him very enthusiastically, and immediately asked about what Uchiha Madara had seen and heard in the universe after sitting down. There is no doubt about what Uchiha Madara said about Fury. After all, Fury has witnessed with his own eyes that Uchiha Madara and Carol shuttle freely between the universe. But Carol never mentioned this to me, Fury said hesitantly. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara sneered and looked at Fury with eyes that hated iron. Carol has nothing to say. These people are not going to attack the Earth now, just in case, Uchiha Madara said speechlessly. Although knowing this is very important, Fury is really powerless. I know, I will make people like space to be more vigilant, but there is no particularly good way now, 35 Fury said with some helplessness. This is indeed the best way. Apart from doing defensive work, the rest can only be left to fate. Soon Uchiha Madara let go of this matter. After all, you still have to live in the present, and there is no need to worry too much about things that will not be seen in the future. However, before Uchiha Madara completely put this matter behind him, he received a call from Fury and discovered a very strange phenomenon in one state. Suddenly there was lightning and thunder, and a hammer appeared in the desert after the lightning. The hammer looked just arm's length, but no one could successfully lift it. Probably when he was in Jotunheim before, Thor really impressed Uchiha Madara too deeply. Therefore, after hearing the hammer, Uchiha Madara's first reaction was that this hammer should not be Thor's hammer. But soon Uchiha Madara shook his head, thinking that he must be thinking too much. In any case, Thor is also a god in Norse mythology. How could he throw his naval weapon to the earth? Advertisement. So Fury decided to let Coulson go to deal with this matter, exhausted all means, but failed to pick up the hammer. In the end, Fury decided to build a base there, studied the hammer well, and thought of Uchiha Madara's magical ability, so Fury was going to let Uchiha Madara try it out. But to be honest, Uchiha Madara had no interest in carrying a hammer as a weapon and didn't want to run around, so she refused. But the previous conjecture left traces in Uchiha's heart, so before hanging up the phone, Uchiha Madara asked Fury to send a picture of the hammer to himself. After receiving the picture, Uchiha Madara's face gradually became solemn. Although it was far from Jotunheim, Uchiha Madara had a rough glimpse of Thor's hammer. This hammer was too similar to the one Thor held before, and Uchiha Madara could no longer take his previous conjecture as a matter of indifference. After pondering for a while, Uchiha Madara still did not tell Fury about this, but went to find a lot of books on Norse mythology and studied it carefully. To be honest, no one who seriously studies Norse mythology, Uchiha Madara finally saw the appearance of Thor's hammer in a fairy tale book. The hammer on the fairy tale book is exactly the same as the picture Uchiha Madara received. Because he has seen the gods in Norse mythology with his own eyes, Uchiha Madara is naturally convinced that this is Thor's hammer. It's just that how to tell other people about this matter is a bit complicated. And Uchiha Madara is also very curious. This Thor's hammer is almost Thor's natal weapon. It is logically impossible to leave. But now that Thor's hammer actually appeared on the earth, this thing is too weird. I don't know where Thor is now, and there is always a reason why Thor's hammer came to earth. After thinking about these things, how could Uchiha Madara sit still, completely forgetting the thing that he didn't want to go through before, and flew directly to the base using a helicopter? Since Coulson is clear about Uchiha Madara's identity, his attitude towards Uchiha Madara is naturally different. Therefore, although he did not say hello to Coulson in advance, Coulson still took Uchiha Madara to the place where the hammer was without saying a word. Chapter 318 Strange Hammer, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 318 Strange Hammer. Obviously, Coulson and others thought that this hammer had a very extraordinary origin, so they designed many mechanisms to surround the hammer. If ordinary people want to break in, it is estimated that 10 lives are not enough. But with Coulson leading the way, Uchiha Madara easily walked to the hammer, and the shock from what he saw with his own eyes was more profound than what he saw in the pictures. At first sight of this hammer, Uchiha Madara was basically certain that this was the hammer that Thor was holding. Now my inner guess has basically been verified as reality. To be honest, Uchiha Madara's face is not very good. After all, Thor's hammer is too important for Thor, and Thor is the son of Odin, basically the next master of the gods' domain. So when Thor's hammer appeared on Earth at this time, Uchiha Madara couldn't be at ease. Although Uchiha Madara's face was not very good, Coulson didn't care too much, just thought that Uchiha Madara was a little tired from the long journey. After all, Coulson still doesn't know the origin of this hammer, he just thought that this hammer is like a meteorite that occasionally falls to the earth. Coulson speculates that the hammer may have been affected by magnetism, so no one was able to lift the hammer successfully. This matter is too important, although Ko Shang is Fufu Rui's confidant, but Uchiha Madara does not dare to fully entrust his trust. Therefore, Uchiha Madara just kept this matter in his heart silently, and did not want to tell Coulson now. Seeing that Uchiha Madara's mood was not particularly good, Coulson wanted to liven up the atmosphere at this time. So Coulson smiled at Uchiha Madara, then pointed to the hammer not far ahead. "Are you going to give it a try? Maybe you'll lift it up?" Coulson said with a smile. Uchiha Madara also knew Coulson was joking. And Uchiha Madara knows the origin of this hammer very well, so he doesn't think he can lift it successfully. Originally Uchiha Madara was going to reject Coulson, but just when Uchiha Madara was about to shake her head, she suddenly saw the concern in Coulson's eyes. Advertisement. Thinking that Coulson was also trying to activate his emotions, Uchiha Madara smiled and no longer refused. Taking a few steps forward, Uchiha Madara moved his knuckles and put his hand on the handle of the hammer. In fact, Uchiha Madara is just pretending to be very hard, but Uchiha Madara is the only one who knows how much effort she exerted. Because he knew Uchiha Madara's ability, Coulson still had high hopes for the live class and watched Uchiha Madara with anticipation. Originally, Uchiha Madara thought that he might be no different from other people, but at this moment, a magical scene happened. You can really swear to God, Uchiha Madara knows very well that she has absolutely no force. But just as Uchiha Madara was pulling the handle to pull the hammer out, no matter how hard the others tried, even with big tools like truck cranes, the hammer wouldn't move. But Uchiha Madara just tried it lightly and the hammer moved. To be honest, it happened so suddenly, Uchiha Madara was shocked when he felt the hammer in his hand move slightly. There was no response for a while, and the hammer was thrown back again. Coulson has been watching all this from the side, and naturally he also noticed the movement ahead. While Coulson has always held out hope, he honestly didn't expect Uchiha Madara to actually be able to lift the hammer. After his dream came true, Coulson didn't know how to react. In the end, Uchiha Madara's action of putting the hammer back woke Coulson. Coulson rushed forward very excitedly and looked at Uchiha Madara in surprise. "My God, you actually managed to lift this hammer, it's unbelievable." Coulson's tone was full of surprises. Not to mention Coulson's hilarious expression, the Uchiha-like person who had been unusually calm all this time did not react, and he didn't understand what was going on. After all, according to the records in mythology, no one can hold Thor's hammer except Thor. Advertisement. Now the development of things seems to be beyond Uchiha's control, so Uchiha's face is not very good. 0. For flowers. But Coulson was immersed in surprises, and naturally he had no time to care about Uchiha Madara's face, just hoped that Uchiha Madara could pull out the hammer completely. "It seems that you are the destined person. I wonder if you can help us get this hammer out," Coulson pleaded very politely. After hearing Coulson's words, Uchiha Madara woke up from his thoughts, but he did not reject Coulson. But to be honest, Uchiha Madara always felt that things were not so simple, so he did not talk too much, but said that all this may be an accident. "I'll try it first. It may have been an accident just now. How can I get so much power?" Uchiha Madara waved his hand and said modestly. 0. Then, under some nervous gaze from Coulson, Uchiha Madara put his hand on the handle of the hammer again. But this time, no matter how hard Uchiha Madara tried, the hammer remained motionless and did not move at all. After realizing this, Uchiha Madara was actually relieved. Things didn't develop as he expected. Coulson was obviously very disappointed and looked at Uchiha Madara with regret. It seems that it was just an accident. Uchiha Madara's tone was very relaxed. "This time I came here to see this Thor's hammer with my own eyes, but now that I have seen it, Uchiha Madara doesn't intend to continue wasting time here. I came here this time because I wanted to see this hammer with my own eyes, and since I saw it, I was ready to leave," Uchiha Madara said in a very relaxed tone. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Coulson's face was full of reluctance, but there was no way to stop Uchiha Madara, he could only sigh helplessly. "Really don't stay for a while longer? Maybe in a few days you will be able to successfully pull this hammer," Coulson said expectantly. But for this matter Uchiha Madara is grateful and insensitive, and the hammer Uchiha Madara holds is useless. Besides, this was originally something that belonged to Thor. If a mortal like Uchiha Madara could pick it up, I don't know what Thor would do after knowing it. Chapter 319 Waiting for the Rabbit, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 319 Although there was no serious communication, Uchiha Madara had already figured out Thor's temper when they met in Jotunheim. That is simply a reckless man without a brain, and he values his own identity very much, and looks down on anyone outside the domain of the gods. So if Thor knew that his hammer was picked up by Uchiha Madara, he would be mad. Uchiha Madara will never reveal his strength until he has thoroughly figured out the strength of the people in God's domain. After thinking about this, Uchiha Madara showed a very clear rejection of Coulson's plea. There are other things, you should guard this hammer first, and then contact me if there is anything, Uchiha Madara said very firmly. Then, before Coulson could speak, Uchiha Madara directly said goodbye to 5 or 60 to Coulson. I still have something to do, so I won't stay here any longer. I'll leave now. Uchiha Madara waved to Coulson. Then Uchiha Madara acted very urgently and ran in the direction where he parked the helicopter. Now that the helicopter has been replenished, after Uchiha Madara got up, he made a gesture to the driver, and the driver immediately started the helicopter. By the time Uchiha Madara returned to the Malibu villa, it was already midnight. So although there were a lot of discoveries, Uchiha Madara didn't talk to anyone, but went back and rested for a day very calmly. After enough rest, Uchiha Madara went to find Fury unhurriedly, and then threw a myth book on Fury's table. What is this for? Are you going to take me back to my missing childhood? Fury asked furiously after Uchiha Madara's sudden movement was startled. Facing Fury's one-liners, Uchiha Madara ignored it, and just turned the book to the page of Thor's hammer on his own. Don't you think this hammer has some déjà vu? Uchiha Madara pointed to the picture, and then pointedly said. Originally, Fury was very casual, but after seeing the picture clearly, Fury couldn't help but pointed at this picture with wide eyes. Advertisement. This is exactly the same as the hammer that fell on the earth. What is going on? Fury asked in surprise. This matter is too complicated to explain, and Uchiha Madara is not ready to tell the story of the gods in Norse mythology that he has seen. Therefore, Uchiha Bai's performance was somewhat perfunctory, and he just attributed his discovery to reading Norse mythology when he was a child, and thus got inspiration. I don't know if Fury believes it, but if Uchiha Madara doesn't want to say, other people can't ask. So Fury directly ignored where Uchiha Madara found it, mainly thinking about whether the hammer was Thor's hammer. However, for such a person who believes in science, Uchiha Madara's idea is obviously beyond his own cognition. Therefore, in the face of this matter, he has always been very decisive, and Fury has some hesitations. After all, like Carol and the Hulk, these can be explained from a scientific point of view. But once Thor's hammer is verified, it proves that Norse mythology has become a reality, and the accepted atheism may be impacted. Uchiha Madara also knew that this was a big shock to Fury, but the fact was in front of him, and Fury couldn't help but believe it. I know it's very difficult for you to accept, but it's probably the truth, Uchiha Madara said calmly. After all, he is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. In fact, Fury is very decisive in normal times, and Fury calms down when he hears Uchiha Madara's words. You're right, but how do you prove that this is Thor's hammer? Fury said with some distress. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara couldn't help rolling his eyes. Although Uchiha Madara has seen Thor's hammer with his own eyes, he can't tell Fury directly, so Uchiha Madara has some troubles now. I'm not Thor, how'd I know if this hammer is real? Uchiha Madara's voice was full of helplessness. It was only at this time that Fury reacted. He just asked a nonsense, and smiled at Uchiha Madara a little embarrassed. However, this matter really made Fury very distressed. Although Fury believed in Uchiha Madara's discovery, there was nothing he could do without proof. So what should we do now? Without evidence, this is just empty talk, and no one will believe it at all, Fury said with some distress. Advertisement Uchiha Madara naturally understands this, so the expression on his face is not very good now. But after thinking for a moment, Uchiha Madara suddenly had an idea. Thor's hammer is Thor's most important thing, equivalent to the magic weapon of life. So now that Thor's hammer appeared on Earth, it was obvious that Thor was the one who was most distressed. So no matter what, Thor will definitely come over and want to get his things back. That being the case, there is no need for Uchiha Madara and Furui to be in a hurry, they just need to wait quietly. Thinking of this, the expression on Uchiha Madara's face gradually relaxed, and she smiled at Fury very calmly. There's no other way to wait, if it's Thor's thing, he will naturally come to find it, Uchiha Madara said very calmly. It was because it was too urgent before, so Fury didn't think about it at all. Now listening to Uchiha Madara say this, Fury's face showed an expression of sudden realization. You're right, it's not us who should be worried now, after all, this hammer is not harmful. Fury's tone suddenly relaxed. Pay attention to strengthening the arrangement of manpower. After all, if it is really something of Thor, it should be difficult to deal with, Uchiha Madara reminded. 1.1. Naturally, Fury was very clear about this, and nodded towards Uchiha Madara. Don't worry, I will send our most elite personnel over, this matter is very important. 35 Fury assured very seriously. With Fury's assurance, Uchiha Madara breathed a sigh of relief and handed the matter over to Fury. After all, if there is something that cannot be handled, Fury will naturally come to the Uchiha class for help. Therefore, Uchiha Madara is not necessary for the time being, and keeps this matter in mind all the time. Throwing a major event out of his mind, Uchiha Madara was also relieved, and then said goodbye to Fury. Because Uchiha Madara's whereabouts have been elusive these days, Tony is naturally very curious. What exactly did Uchiha Madara do? Chapter 320 The Iron Monster, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 320 Steel Monster. Although Uchiha Madara wanted very much to tell Tony what happened, it was too complicated. And now that this matter has been handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D., Uchiha Madara will naturally not let this matter leak out of his mouth. In any case, Tony is also an advisor to the Avengers, so Uchiha Madara felt that if Tony wanted to know, it would be more convenient to ask Fury himself. So facing Tony's curious eyes, Uchiha Madara smiled slightly, but shook his head mercilessly. This matter is more complicated. If you want to know, you might as well ask Fury yourself. Uchiha Madara said coldly. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Tony's face showed a disappointed expression. But I also understand Uchiha Madara's character very well. Knowing that Uchiha Madara really doesn't want to talk about it, Tony doesn't bother too much anymore. After handing this matter over to S.H.I.E.L.D., Uchiha Madara didn't worry too much. After all, Fury still has some means, and Uchiha Madara believes that Fury can handle O5 well. However, this is Thor's hammer after all, and it is basically impossible to successfully study this hammer with the current level of technology on Earth. Uchiha Madara was not particularly hopeful. After a few days, Uchiha Madara suddenly received news from Fury. This time Fury's tone was very solemn, although after talking with Uchiha Madara before, Fury gradually accepted the fact that this hammer is very likely to be Thor's hammer, and that the legendary god is real. But after all, after accepting the teaching of atheism for so many years, Fury is not very happy to accept this fact. But this time around the hammer, another very strange thing happened. According to Fury's description, in a desert, a very strange teleportation formation suddenly appeared on the ground. Advertisement originally, everyone would not have discovered this, but after the appearance of Thor's hammer, Fury asked Coulson to strengthen monitoring. So there was an inadvertently detected burst of very large energy fluctuations. After going to the place where the energy fluctuations came, Coulson and others saw something similar to a teleportation array on the ground. This teleportation array has very strange lines, but after some research, Coulson's people did not get anything useful. And this energy fluctuation is just a momentary thing. After it is detected, it disappears completely within a few seconds. After listening to Fury's description, Uchiha Madara's expression gradually became solemn, and this matter was obviously not simple. No matter what, Uchiha Madara couldn't continue to sit at home safely, and could only prepare to go over and see what happened. But it is a suspected teleportation array, so Uchiha Madara is not very anxious. Although it is possible to move in an instant, there is absolutely no need to reveal his identity because of such a thing. So Uchiha Madara took a helicopter and rushed over with a calm face. After Uchiha Madara passed, Coulson saw Uchiha Madara as if he saw a savior. Sir, you are finally here. Damn it, there is a very strange monster in this legend. Coulson ran over with a look of embarrassment and said to Uchiha Madara. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara's face showed an inexplicable expression, not understanding what Coulson was talking about. Coulson also knew that now was not the time to explain these things, so he took out a camera and put the recorded scene in front of Uchiha Madara. Originally Uchiha Madara had a casual expression, but after seeing the picture in the camera clearly, Uchiha Madara suddenly became serious. It can be clearly seen from the picture that the area where the sky was clear was suddenly shrouded by dark clouds, and a huge mushroom cloud appeared above the teleportation formation. And there was a Uzumaki in the middle of the mushroom cloud that kept spinning, followed by a very huge steel monster that appeared on the earth from the Uzumaki. The whole body of this monster is completely made of steel. When the steel sheet in the monster's eyes drops, it will emit a burst of crimson energy beams. Was this monster looking for someone? After firing an energy beam at Coulson and the others, it ran directly towards the town. Advertisement After watching it, Uchiha Madara naturally knew what to do, threw the camera to Coulson, and then ran towards the city without having time to explain anything. When Uchiha Madara ran into the city, he found that someone seemed to have moved very quickly and cleared all the residents in the city. Thor, who had met once, was just an ordinary person, but he still walked in front of the steel monster with a fearless face. Loki, I'll give you my life to end this, don't continue. Thor said calmly to the steel monster. I don't know what happened, I saw the steel monster's eyes flashed, and then he slapped Thor out. Then the steel monster turned around and left, seemingly agreeing to Thor's conditions. Seeing this steel monster's actions, a sneer appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. This is not a place on Earth where these 560 people can come and go at will, which completely ignores Uchiha Madara. So when the steel monster turned to leave, Uchiha Madara stretched out his hand. Without hesitation, an energy beam was launched, and it directly hit the chest of this steel monster. Probably did not expect that someone on Earth could possess such terrifying power, this steel monster had no defense. Then he fell directly to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. An Earth woman from behind threw herself on Thor, with a very sad expression on her face, while the other oddly dressed people stared at Uchiha Madara in stunned eyes. Although it was hit by Uchiha Madara, the steel monster was obviously rough-skinned and crawled up from the ground. For Uchiha Madara, it was just a dying struggle, nothing to be afraid of. Just when Uchiha Madara was about to give the steel monster the final blow, a very terrifying energy wave suddenly came from the direction of the mushroom cloud. Immediately afterwards, something flew directly towards this side, and it was about to hit Thor. Because Uchiha Madara has better eyesight, he can see clearly even at this speed, and the thing flying over is actually Thor's hammer. Chapter 321 Change, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 321 Change. Although I don't know why, Thor's hammer will fly over from that area on its own initiative, but after all, this is Thor's naval weapon, and it shouldn't hurt Thor. So Uchiha Madara stepped forward quickly, picked up the woman lying beside Thor, and left the area. Immediately after, Uchiha Madara stared at the hammer with a calm expression, wanting to see what the hell was going on. Immediately afterwards, a magical scene happened. Thor, who had lost his breath, suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the handle of the hammer. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened. This is simply challenging everyone's worldview. After all, Thor was immortal before, and he has completely lost his breath, and now he can actually come back to life. Although the expression on Uchiha Madara's face was a little surprised, it was directly attributed to the identity of the god. If they are the same as ordinary people, then why is God called God? So Uchiha Madara is unusually calm. As expected by Uchiha Madara, this Thor is indeed resurrected, and it looks much better than before. Soon Thor stood up, and the appearance of the whole person was not the same as before. The current Thor has become what Uchiha Madara saw in Jotunheim. He is wearing an armor and a red cloak. He holds the hammer of Thor in his hand, and the whole person is very spiritual. After seeing Uchiha Madara, Thor smiled at Uchiha Madara and looked very approachable. Asterisk a caret asterisk dollar asterisk caret. I didn't expect that this trip to the earth would make Thor change so much. Uchiha Madara naturally also noticed that Thor's character has changed a lot from before, and he looked at Thor in surprise. Thank you for your help, but this matter started because of me. Let me solve it, Thor said very firmly. Anyway, Uchiha Madara's purpose is to destroy this steel monster. Can't let him continue to make waves on the earth. But Uchiha Madara doesn't really care who will end the steel monster. Advertisement. Now that Thor himself volunteered, Uchiha Madara ceded the position to Thor. Smiling at Uchiha Madara, Thor turned and looked at the steel monster with a serious face. Then Thor raised his Thor's hammer high, and then used the gust of wind to blow, and the whole sky was completely gloomy. A lot of thunder and lightning gathered on Thor's hammer, and Thor raised his hammer and smashed the steel monster directly. Although the steel monster looked unstoppable, it was only because Thor lost his quake. Now this steel monster is simply vulnerable in front of Thor. After successfully solving this steel monster, the originally gloomy weather gradually cleared up. Aside from some rundowns on the streets of the town, it's basically impossible to see that a major battle has just happened. After finishing the steel monster, Thor walked up to Uchiha Madara and looked at Uchiha Madara curiously. Are you really an Atrium person? But I feel the ability to not be with me in you, Thor said with some surprise. Faced with Thor's question, Uchiha Madara smiled and said, I don't know what the Atrium means, but I am indeed a man from Earth. 5. Hearing Uchiha Madara's answer, Thor didn't quite believe it. He wanted to say something, but Thor didn't say anything when he was interrupted by Coulson. Coulson drove several black sedans and rushed over with S.H.I.E.L.D. employees. It seems that you have concealed a lot of your identity, Coulson walked in front of Thor and said inexplicably. I don't know if Thor understood or not, but Thor just laughed heartily. Our purpose is the same, to protect the Atrium, which is the Earth you call it, Thor replied with a smile. As long as your purpose remains the same, I can be your ally. 35. Since Thor has already said so, there is no reason why Uchiha Madara should not. After all, having a god as his friend is a good thing for the Earth. Through this matter Uchiha Madara has seen that the current defense of the Earth is simply vulnerable to these people. Advertisements so try to draw all these people together and become friends, and naturally there will be fewer villains. It's natural, we are all peace-loving people. Uchiha Madara smiled at Thor and said it for granted. Thor was obviously very satisfied with Uchiha Madara's answer, and the smile on his face became more sincere. After a few hearty smiles at Uchiha Madara, Thor turned his attention to the woman before him and opened his hands towards that woman. Backquote. This is my girlfriend. I hope you can return her research materials to her. After all, we are now allies, Thor said, looking at Coulson. It seems that some things happened in the middle that Uchiha Madara is not aware of, but Uchiha Madara believes that Coulson still has a brain and knows how to make choices. Sure enough, after hearing Thor's words, Coulson smiled at Thor and then nodded very quickly. Of course, we're just borrowing it temporarily, and we'll return it. She still has to do research, Coulson said very kindly. Now that the issue has been resolved, Uchiha Madara can ask Thor what's next. Hearing this question, the expression on Thor's face had a name for a moment, but it soon returned to normal. This matter started because of me. I have to go back and solve this matter completely. Loki needs to pay the price. Thor's voice was low for a moment. Since Thor himself has an idea, Uchiha Madara naturally won't say much. King Lee's is just very curious and will use what method to go back. Originally, Uchiha Madara thought that Thor would fly directly to the universe like himself, and then return to the realm of the gods. But he didn't expect Thor to run to the teleportation formation outside with his own people. Uchiha Madara and Coulson looked at each other and quickly followed. And this teleportation array is also very strange. Thor seems to have no way to open this teleportation array directly, but shouted loudly in the direction of the sky. Heimdall, can you hear? We want to go back now? Thor's voice was very loud. But unfortunately, even if Thor was shouting, it was still silent, and no one gave any response at all. After shouting several times without getting a response, Thor's face was also not very good. What happened? Why didn't Heimdall respond? Thor said to himself, frowning. Chapter 322 Rainbow Bridge, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 322 Rainbow Bridge. Those people who have been following Thor dressed very strangely. The expressions on their faces after hearing this are not very good. Aren't you all locals? You can only have Heimdall come to pick him up, can't you go back by yourself? Uchiha Madara asked curiously after listening to it for a long time. Hearing Uchiha Madara's question, he suddenly sighed and shook his head slightly. We can only enter and leave God's domain through the Rainbow Bridge, and the key to the Rainbow Bridge is in Heimdall's hands. Thor's tone was full of helplessness and urgency. After hearing this, Uchiha Madara didn't know how to comfort him, so he could only stand beside him with a calm expression, waiting for Thor and the others to come up with their own solutions. As time passed, there was still no movement on the teleportation array, and Thor and the others' faces became worse and worse. One of the strong men looked up at the sky angrily, and then walked in front of Thor. All this must be done by Loki, and I don't know how God's domain is now, he is a lunatic, the strong man said with gritted teeth. Hearing this, Thor's face was not very good, but he couldn't refute it, he could only stand in place with a look of anger. I will definitely educate Loki when I go back this time, but he may just have a bad idea. 35. Although Thor's face was not very good, he still stayed aligned, and it could be seen that he still cared very much for his brother Thor. It's just a pity that Loki doesn't seem to have the same mind as Thor. While listening to Thor and his companions talking, Uchiha Madara had already recalled Loki's face in his mind. Just from the look of his face, he knew that compared to Thor, Loki was a shrewd person. So if he really played with his heart, Thor would definitely be no match for Loki. Just as Uchiha Madara fell into deep thought, Thor's conversation with his companions also came to an end. Soon Thor regained his energy and continued to call Heimdall's name to the sky. Advertisement. Although the hope is very slim, it is better than continuing to work here and wait. After shouting for a while, the originally calm skies suddenly moved. Everyone's faces showed surprise expressions, and Thor looked at the sky above the teleportation array with excitement. After a few seconds, there was a very big movement in the sky, and a bridge shrouded in light appeared in front of everyone. This should be the Rainbow Bridge that Thor said could reach the Divine Realm. After seeing the Rainbow Bridge finally appear, Thor was very excited. The others also couldn't wait to take their weapons and prepare to enter the Rainbow Bridge and return to God's domain. But before leaving, Thor turned his attention to his girlfriend Jane. I'm going back to Asgard now, but I promise you I'll be back. Thor's eyes were very soft. While Thor and Jane were talking to each other, Uchiha Madara reluctantly stroked his forehead. Although Thor doesn't have any malice towards Earth, to be honest Uchiha Madara doesn't feel that Earth welcomes such a person. After all, they are not the same race, and Uchiha Madara always felt that Thor's presence would bring other troubles, and the Earth would not be safe again. But this is not something that the live class can control, unless Uchiha Madara can destroy this Rainbow Bridge. So Uchiha Madara can only hope that when Thor is on the Earth, he can behave a little more peacefully and don't bring any other strange races over. When Uchiha Madara thought about countless ideas, Thor finally finished his farewell. Then Thor took his companions to the Rainbow Bridge, and then disappeared in front of everyone. But Thor did not leave with Coulson, he just stayed in this place. After all, the strange energy fluctuations did not disappear. In order to prevent any accident from happening, Uchiha Madara felt more at ease staying here. AFBB, after a few hours, the cloudy sky suddenly clears up, and the strange energy fluctuations have completely disappeared. Uchiha Madara finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then turned his attention to Coulson. Advertisement, come on, now you can go back to meet Fury. Uchiha Madara's tone was full of relief. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Coulson also laughed, and the whole person showed a lot of relaxation. But compared to the relief of Uchiha Madara and Coulson, Jane's expression was full of loss, and after a moment of hesitation, Jane walked in front of Uchiha Madara. Will he come back? Jane asked, looking at Uchiha Madara with very expectant eyes. This problem is difficult for Uchiha Madara. After all, the Rainbow Bridge has completely disappeared, and Uchiha Madara does not know what happened in the realm of the gods. So this question Uchiha Madara cannot answer either. But seeing Jane's cautious gaze, Uchiha Madara swallowed the impossibility that was about to be said back into her stomach, and there was still a glimmer of hope for Jane. Maybe, didn't you study this? Try to see if you can find him, Uchiha Madara said in a very calm tone. Probably Uchiha Madara's tone gave Jane confidence, and a smile gradually appeared on Jane's face, and then nodded heavily. Now that it was all over, Uchiha Madara no longer had any nostalgia for this place and left soon after. When he returned to the villa, Uchiha Madara found that Tony, who had been waiting for him in the villa all the time, was waiting for him in the villa. What happened? It should have been dealt with, can you tell me now? Tony said impatiently. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara glanced at Tony curiously and asked, didn't Fury tell you? Hearing Uchiha Madara's question, Tony pouted and complained, no one can be found anywhere. 39. It seems that Fury is also very busy during this time, which is not an unspeakable thing. Now that the matter has been dealt with, Uchiha Madara also feels that there is no need to hide it, so he told Tony everything that happened during this time. After listening to Uchiha Madara's description, Tony opened his mouth in shock, and the whole person has not recovered. This goes against science. You mean there are gods in Norse mythology? Tony's tone was full of disbelief. Compared to Tony's seriousness, Uchiha Madara nodded flatly and didn't find it strange. Chapter 323 The Rubik's Cube was robbed, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 323 The Rubik's Cube was robbed. Science. Do you think what happened on Earth during this period of time can still be explained by science? Uchiha Madara said calmly. Tony couldn't refute what he said, so Tony could only sit on the sofa in a trance and start digesting the matter himself. You must know that Tony is an absolute supporter of science, but Uchiha Madara believes that although this matter is a little difficult to accept, Tony can figure it out for himself. Therefore, Madara and Shia did not enlighten Tony, but went to rest on their own. Sure enough, when Uchiha Madara saw Tony again the next day, he found that Tony had returned to normal. And Tony also smiled and leaned over to Uchiha Madara's side and asked for more specific information. So what weapons do their gods use? Is it magic? Tony asked furiously, and then without waiting for Uchiha Madara to answer, Tony continued talking on his own. If I can put their magic into my steel suit, the attack power will definitely go up several steps. Tony's tone was full of yearning. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara rolled his eyes helplessly, thinking that Tony was just talking about a dream. But why would they teach you magic? And I'm not sure they'll be able to reach Earth. 35 Uchiha Madara said something speechless. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Tony finally settled down and closed his mouth. After sending Thor and others away, the Earth finally returned to its former calm, but for ordinary people, the Earth has always been very calm. Uchiha Madara wants to keep it going, but sometimes things go beyond expectations. Even Uchiha Madara can't stop it. After all, there are always people who are dying. Just after a few days of rest, Uchiha Madara received a call from Fury, saying that the Universe Cube had been robbed. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara's first reaction was that Fury was joking. After all, everyone knew the importance of the Rubik's Cube. Is it April Fool's Day? This joke is not funny at all, said Uchiha Madara, frowning. Advertisement. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Fury also showed a few wry smiles, and his voice was full of helplessness. I also hope this is just a joke, but it's a pity that this thing actually happened, Fury said with some embarrassment. You must know that the cosmic Rubik's Cube has always been kept by S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, Uchiha Madara has already obtained the power in the Rubik's Cube, and taking the Rubik's Cube is useless. Facing Fury's statement, Uchiha Madara didn't know how to react. She could only take a deep breath, and then asked what happened. A man named Loki suddenly appeared and stole the Universe Cube, Fury said with some embarrassment. Hearing these words, Uchiha Madara frowned unconsciously. I didn't expect that Loki would actually come out to make trouble. It seems that after Thor went back, his education for Loki was not very successful. I'll go to find you now. It's useless to talk about this now. I have to get the Rubik's Cube back. Uchiha Madara made a decisive decision. After all, Uchiha Madara is the one who knows the terrifying energy contained in the Rubik's Cube. And Loki is not a good person at first glance. No matter what, Uchiha Madara can't let the universe Rubik's Cube fall into the hands of such a person. After thinking about this, where Uchiha Madara could still sit still, he naturally went to Fury to discuss this matter. Seeing that Uchiha Madara was going out suddenly, Tony looked at Uchiha Madara curiously, not knowing what happened. This matter is also very complicated to explain, so Uchiha Madara simply said a few words, indicating that aliens from outer space may come to invade the Earth. Speaking of this, Tony couldn't sit still, and immediately stood up from the sofa, expressing that he wanted to go with Uchiha Madara. Now Uchiha Madara didn't care about Tony anymore. He just waved his hand for Tony to follow, and immediately went to look for Fury. After seeing Uchiha Madara, Fury immediately greeted him as if he had seen a savior. There is no time to greet each other now. Uchiha Madara looked at Fury very seriously, hoping that Fury could tell the situation without concealment. When thinking of this incident, Fury also had an embarrassed smile on his face. Speaking of which, this incident is actually very related to Fury. When they first got the Rubik's Cube, because neither Uchiha Madara nor Carol needed to use the power of the Rubik's Cube, they gave the Rubik's Cube to Fury. Advertisement 0. For flowers. But Fury is obviously a very ambitious person. Compared with holding the Universe Cube steadily, Fury hopes to make the Universe Cube create greater value. Therefore, Fury has been quietly conducting research on the Universe Rubik's Cube called Tianma Project. Fury hopes to use the power of the Universe Cube to create more advanced weapons. In fact, this starting point is a good one. But Uchiha Madara felt that Fury simply did not correctly recognize the power of the cosmic Rubik's Cube. It is obviously very stupid to rashly study the true ability of a thing before it is clear. I think you're crazy. The power of the universe is beyond the control of the current level of technology. Uchiha Madara's face is simply ugly. Zero Fury also obviously knew that he did have some quick success this time. So in the face of Uchiha Madara's accusation, Fury didn't say anything, just stood there without saying a word, and let Uchiha Madara lose his temper. After sending a breath, Uchiha Madara quickly restrained his emotions and began to think about how to solve this matter. According to what Fury saw at the time, this Loki was not a great person either. It seems that Loki has successfully controlled several agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well as the researchers responsible for studying the Rubik's Cube in the universe. After listening to Fury's description, Uchiha Madara and Tony's faces were not very good, but no matter what, this matter must always be faced. No matter what, this behavior of his is tantamount to declaring war on us, and we naturally cannot be a tortoise, Uchiha Madara said with a cold face. On this matter, Uchiha Madara and Fury have the same position. I think so too. No matter what, the war has started now, Fury said in a very low voice. It is obviously impractical to have such a few of us, and we need more helpers, Uchiha Madara said with a serious face. This just coincides with Fury's idea, and the only thing to think about now is where to find the right person. After all, not everyone is trustworthy. Chapter 324 Identity Guessing, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 324 Identity Guessing. When Uchiha Madara and Tony fell into contemplation, thinking about what kind of person is more reliable, Fury suddenly cast his hopeful eyes on Uchiha Madara. Under such gaze, Uchiha Madara was also a little embarrassed, looking at Fury with a puzzled look. "What's the matter? Just say something, don't do it," Uchiha Madara said impatiently. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, a slightly embarrassed smile appeared on Fury's face. But in the end, Fury's face is too thick, and he is not embarrassed at all, and still looks at Uchiha Madara with a firm face. "As far as I know, you should have a good relationship with the Hulk, maybe you can ask him to help," Fury said in a hopeful tone. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara immediately remembered that there was still Banner, but Uchiha Madara was not sure if Banner was willing to come out. After all, Banner has not yet developed a drug that can successfully suppress the Hulk in his body, so it is very likely that Banner is psychologically unwilling to come out. Only after hearing Fury's suggestion, Uchiha Madara's face showed an embarrassed look. But no matter what, Uchiha Madara is still willing to give it a try. Fury is a very winking person, and naturally he can see the movement in Uchiha Madara's expression. So Fury laughed immediately and explained why he wanted to invite Dr. Banner. Dr. Selvig and Dr. Banner, who study the Rubik's Cube, are good friends, and Dr. Banner is indeed a very good scientist, Fury explained. Hearing these words, Uchiha Madara nodded with a flat expression, and then quickly took out his phone to contact Dr. Banner. But after making several calls in a row, no one answered, and Uchiha Madara was a little strange. It stands to reason that if Dr. Banner was still on the island, he would not have missed the phone anyway. Advertisement. After Dr. Banner could not be contacted, Uchiha Madara's face was not very good. After all, the irrational Hulk is simply a stealth bomb, so the Uchiha class really has some concerns about what will happen to Dr. Banner. After thinking for a moment, Uchiha Madara contacted Jarvis directly. Let Jarvis hack into the network on the island and see where Dr. Banner is. This is the fastest and cheapest way. To be honest, although Jarvis is only an AI, he is the most reliable one that Uchiha Madara has ever seen, much more reliable than many people. After Uchiha Madara explained the matter, Jarvis completed the matter within a few minutes, and soon successfully invaded the island's network. As expected by Uchiha Madara, it was precisely because he was not on the island that Dr. Banner did not receive a call from Uchiha Madara. In this way, this matter is more difficult to handle, not only to beware of Loki, but also to look for the trace of Dr. Banner. Just when Uchiha sighed and thought it wasn't really a good time to pick, Fury suddenly stood up and said that he could help. But this is normal. After all, Fury is the most anxious about this matter. Now that there is free labor, Uchiha Madara will naturally not refuse. It's just that after finding Dr. Banner, Uchiha Madara still needs to come forward. After all, Dr. Banner is very wary of ordinary people, and he doesn't trust human beings at all. To be honest, although things are almost arranged, Uchiha Madara still does not relax. Loki is a total lunatic, at least according to Uchiha Madara. Although it is not clear what happened to God's domain, but with Uchiha Madara's IQ, he also guessed that Loki must have colluded with the Frost Giant. Originally Uchiha Madara didn't care about other people's housework, to be honest. But Loki wants to make waves on the earth, so Uchiha Madara can't stand idly by. Combined with what he had seen in Jotunheim before, Uchiha Madara suddenly had a bold speculation about Loki's identity. Advertisement. At that time, because the station was relatively high, Uchiha Madara could see clearly what was happening underneath. Although I didn't take it seriously, but when Loki and the Frost Giant were fighting, the strange thing at that moment was that Uchiha Madara just happened to see him straight at zero. Only ice giants have the ability to turn their bodies into ice cubes. But at the time of the fight, Uchiha Madara noticed that Loki's body had undergone very strange changes after being attacked. The original normal skin has also become a wood with the Frost Giant. Originally, Uchiha Madara didn't care about this trivial matter at all. But now that I think about it this way, I find that there are oddities everywhere. So a little speculation. Uchiha Madara can basically confirm that Loki's identity is very strange, and it is very likely that he is the descendant of the legendary Frost Giant. Then the thought of Uchiha Madara's face became even more solemn, and it is very likely that Loki could escape this time with the help of the Frost Giant. Otherwise, Uchiha Madara believes that no matter what, Thor will definitely teach Loki a lesson. How can Loki still have a chance to come to the earth to make waves? So now things are getting more and more serious. The refrigerator Frost Giant is not a good race. For the whole earth, this may be a very big catastrophe, so Uchiha Madara naturally will not hide it, and quickly made his guess out. For Uchiha Madara's words, both Fury and Tony are naturally convinced, and the face becomes more serious after listening to this. If that's the case, then it's really bad. We must be ready now, and we must recapture the Rubik's Cube as soon as possible, Fury said with a serious look. I'll go out with Tony and find Dr. Banner quickly, Uchiha Madara said seriously. After the division of labor is completed, everyone no longer wastes time, and immediately goes out to act. After all, for Uchiha Madara and others, time is the most precious thing. When Uchiha Madara and Tony went out to find the whereabouts of Loki and others, there was finally good news from Fury, who successfully found the location of Dr. Banner. Not knowing what happened, Dr. Banner suddenly changed state and went to a very poor and backward country. Chapter 325 Looking for Banner, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 325. Looking for Banner. In any case, he finally succeeded in knowing the whereabouts of Dr. Banner, and Uchiha Madara stopped wasting his time and set off immediately. After waiting for where Dr. Banner might be staying, Uchiha Madara unconsciously frowned. It's a very typical ghetto, where crime breeds and the street conditions are disgusting. But Uchiha Madara always remembered the purpose of his visit this time, so he didn't take these little things to heart. Because it was unclear why Dr. Ban and Dr. Na suddenly left the island, Uchiha Madara did not appear in front of Dr. Ban rashly. Instead, he thought of a way to bring Dr. Banner here quietly. This is a slum where anything can be done with money. So Uchiha Madara gave a large bill and asked a child to trick Dr. Banner over there, and O5 said that there was a patient here who needed Dr. Banner's help. Uchiha Madara knew Banner very well, and if that was the reason, Banner would definitely not refuse. Sure enough, within a few minutes, the child hurried over with Dr. Banner. After the child left, Uchiha Madara walked out of the curtain behind him calmly and looked at Banner with a smile. The moment he saw Uchiha Madara, a lot of complicated emotions flashed across Dr. Banner's face, and he suddenly burst out laughing. I didn't expect it to be you, then you can just come and find me. Why do you need someone else? Banner's tone was full of helplessness. It seemed that Banner did not resist his arrival, and Uchiha Madara was relieved, and then laughed. I thought you didn't want to see me, otherwise why did you leave the island without saying a word? Uchiha Madara sighed, looking at Dr. Banner and asking. Hearing this, Dr. Banner also showed an embarrassed expression on his face, but he quickly controlled his emotions. Advertisement after all, in Dr. Banner's view, this time he went out by himself not for some strange reason, but for a real reason. After thinking of this, Uchiha Madara is also relieved. As long as Dr. Banner himself does not resist, then everything is still hopeful. So now Uchiha Madara was very calm, found a chair and sat down, then looked at Banner. Because Uchiha Madara's expression was really serious, Banner didn't know what was going on, he could only do it ignorantly and looked at Uchiha Madara curiously. Now we need your help, Banner, someone wants to completely destroy the earth. Uchiha Madara's expression was very serious. But for Banner, it sounds a little ridiculous, and there's something weird looking at Uchiha Madara. I've been avoiding such a thing from happening, and I think I'm doing a good job. Banner seemed to have misunderstood something and said meaningfully. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara quickly explained it, then took out the picture of the Rubik's Cube on the phone and put it in front of Banner. There is a very terrifying power in it, which can destroy the whole earth, but now he has been robbed. Uchiha Madara said very seriously. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Banner naturally understood the seriousness of the matter, and immediately walked to Uchiha Madara's side, looking at the picture seriously. But after watching it for a long time, Banner still felt that the Universe Cube was nothing but a crystal that would glow, and he could not fully appreciate the terrifying energy that Uchiha Madara said. But in any case, Banner is very clear that Uchiha Madara is not a character who can talk things out. Now that Uchiha Madara has come to the door, it means that things are really serious. So Banner quickly packed up his mood and looked at Uchiha Madara seriously. So what can I do? No matter what, at least Hulk is still very powerful, Banner asked very seriously. Hearing this, a smile gradually appeared on Uchiha Madara's face, but fortunately, Banner did not let himself down. Uchiha Madara was also relieved to see that Dr. Banner was willing to help, but now was not the time to compete with force. The most important thing is to get the most dangerous cosmic cube back. Uchiha Madara believes that as long as the cosmic magic is brought back, Loki doesn't think there will be any storms. Advertisement. The main problem now is that we simply can't capture the gamma rays on the cosmic Rubik's Cube, and you are the person who understands gamma rays best. Uchiha Madara said seriously. Okay, so what should I do now? I can't do anything without the equipment. Dr. Banner agreed very nicely. Banner didn't waste any more time, and immediately prepared to take Banner back to Country M. After all, the equipment on Fury's side is still very complete, and this matter was originally made by Fury, and Fury needs to find a way to solve it. However, when Uchiha Madara brought Madara to S.H.I.E.L.D., he found that Fury's face was simply bad. I don't know what happened, it seems that I just had a big fight with someone else. After seeing Uchiha Madara returning with Banner, Furui forced a smile on his face. Although I haven't officially met, but I don't know you. Fury smiled at Dr. Banner, and then extended his right hand in a friendly manner. 563 Banner behaved very friendly this time, and also stepped forward and shook hands with Fury. Just speak up if you need anything, and I'll send someone to arrange it right away, Fury said to Dr. Banner very politely. It can be seen that Fury seems to have something to say to Uchiha Madara, so Dr. Banner is not wasting time here, and soon bids farewell to Uchiha Madara and Fury. After Banner left, Uchiha Madara turned his attention to Fury and asked what happened. After all, it is crowded outside, so Fury quickly brought Uchiha Madara to his office, and then talked about the reason for his anger with a bad face. Damn, these people are still thinking about these messy things now. If I don't shoot the earth, it will be finished. Fury slammed his hand on the table and said angrily. Now Uchiha Madara also understands what happened in general. In the end, it is still a fight for power. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. has great power, so in order to restrict the situation that S.H.I.E.L.D. is covering the sky, S.H.I.E.L.D. is subject to several elders. These elders can give opinions on the decision of S.H.I.E.L.D., that is, Fury. For Fury, of course, he really wanted to build the Avengers. Chapter 326. The Resurrection of an Old Friend, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 36. The Resurrection of an Old Friend. Although Fury's face is ugly now, Uchiha Madara doesn't think Fury is a person who will give up. Uchiha Madara still understands Fury's character very well. Once a decision is made, 10 cows will not be able to pull it back. Sure enough, after complaining to Uchihaban, Fury quickly regained his composure. No matter what, they can't persuade me, I only know that I am saving the world, Fury said firmly. Whether it's building the Avengers or whatever, none of this has much to do with Uchiha Madara. So Uchiha Madara just gave Fury a cold nod and didn't mention anything that he wanted to help. Facing Uchiha Madara's indifference, Furui has no choice. When Uchiha Madara proposed to leave, Furui suddenly spoke to keep Uchiha Madara. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Uchiha Madara stopped his steps and asked Fury curiously. Hearing Uchiha Madara's question, Fury had a very embarrassed smile on his face, and then motioned for Uchiha Madara to follow his pace. Immediately after that, Fury took Uchiha Madara into a very closed room. Although this room is very closed, the equipment inside is very complete. Uchiha Madara Zebo Madara sat down and took a sip of coffee before putting her questioning eyes on Fury. Fury, who has always been very calm in front of Uchiha Madara, looked a little weird this time. Not only did he dare not look directly into Uchiha Madara's eyes, but the whole person's state was also very tense. Obviously there was some fear of facing Uchiha Madara. Although Furui felt a little strange, Uchiha Madara didn't think too much, just waited patiently. After organizing the language for a long time, Fury finally raised his head and looked at Uchiha Madara. Advertisement. But the moment he saw Uchiha Madara's eyes, Fury forgot the language he had just organized, and the whole person stammered and couldn't say a complete sentence. Just say what happened, can I still kill you? Uchiha Madara was also a little impatient, frowned and urged. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Fury barely controlled himself, took a deep breath, and then looked at Uchiha Madara seriously. I told you not to get too angry, I didn't let others say it, Fu said with a serious face. Uchiha Madara doesn't know exactly what happened, but it's not a trivial matter after all. Therefore, Uchiha Madara did not promise, but looked at Fury with a calm expression. Under the gaze of Uchiha Madara, Fury finally couldn't hold it anymore, hesitating, and finally told the matter. It's like this, we unintentionally fished out the wreckage of a plane in the Arctic Ocean some time ago. Fury's voice was very low, and if you didn't listen carefully, you couldn't hear it at all. But Uchiha Madara, who has always been acting casually, heard it clearly this time, staring at Fury with wide eyes in disbelief. Under the watchful eyes of Uchiha Madara, Fury gritted his teeth and finally told everything that happened. Although Uchiha Madara has always been indifferent to fame and fortune, he doesn't really care about anything. But when the two keywords of the Arctic Ocean and the plane wreck came out, Uchiha Madara couldn't control his emotions. Is what you said true? How is Steve now? In Uchiha Madara's voice, if you listen carefully, you can hear it trembling. It's not bad, but the captain you know has been sleeping for 70 years, and everything is very strange now. Fury said cautiously, for fear of stimulating Uchiha Madara's emotions. Because he knew that Fury had salvaged Steve long ago, but he didn't tell himself, Uchiha Madara didn't have a good face for Fury now. In addition to asking about Steve, he completely ignored Fury, but Fury didn't dare to be dissatisfied at all. You must know that even after so many years, for Uchiha Madara, there are always only two best friends, except for Buggy, which is Steve. Advertisement. Therefore, after hearing the news of his friend who had returned from the dead, Uchiha Madara naturally could no longer maintain the calm and calmness of the past. He kept asking about Steve's current situation, but in the end Uchiha Madara was still not at ease. After all, Fury is a very attentive person. Uchiha Madara was afraid that Steve would suffer in Fury's hands, so Uchiha Madara couldn't sit still after chatting for a while. Backquote. Where is Uchiha Madara now? I want to see him. Uchiha Madara's tone was unprecedentedly tough, revealing an aura that could not be refused. Although I don't know why Freer kept the news that Steve had been salvaged before, Fury did not refuse this time in the face of Uchiha Madara's request. The captain now has someone specially arranged for his necessities, I can take you to see him immediately, Fury said with a very good attitude. Facing Fury with some ingratiating smiles, Uchiha Madara snorted indifferently, and then couldn't wait to let Fury lead the way. Because it has just been thought out, although Steve is a fortified person who has been injected with super soldier serum, he is also being observed in the hospital now. However, because Steve's identity is relatively special, since someone has already concealed this matter. When Uchiha Madara went to the hospital to visit, he found that he couldn't accept this fact for a while, so he didn't know when Steve had run out of the hospital, Li Wanghao. Now that there are cars coming and going on the main road, where Uchiha Madara can rest assured that Steve is running around on the main road all by himself, and he hastened to the road outside. Once out, Uchiha Madara is on the road directly opposite the hospital. I saw Steve standing in the middle of the road with a look of helplessness. Probably thinking that this is a very fantastic thing, Steve kept turning his head and looking at all the graves around him. His expression was filled with confusion and rare fragility. Seeing such a Steve, Uchiha Madara almost brought tears to his eyes. I miss him so much. But now the road is full of traffic, and Steve is standing in the middle, naturally hindering the form of these cars. Many car owners parked their cars, and then cursed and said something to Steve. Although I was very happy to see my old friend, Uchiha Madara quickly woke up. Chapter 327 Consolation. Please subscribe automatically. Advertisement. Chapter 327 Consolation. After seeing this scene, Uchiha Madara immediately rushed forward and grabbed Steve's arm. Under normal circumstances, how could Uchiha Madara get a chance so easily? It's just that he was very stimulated now, so Steve was in a trance, and Uchiha Madara took advantage of it. Originally, after realizing that his arm was being grabbed, Steve wanted to throw his arm away angrily. After noticing Steve's struggle, a slight smile appeared on Uchiha Madara's face unconsciously. "Isn't this how you welcome me after not seeing you for so many years? You have a good temper," Uchiha Madara said in a mocking tone. After hearing the familiar voice, Steve's struggling Rakido involuntarily became much smaller, and then suddenly turned his head. After seeing Uchiha Madara's face clearly, an unbelievable expression appeared on Steve's face. Although I think Steve's expression is too funny, but Uchiha Madara also knows very well that this is not a good time to talk. "This is not a good place to catch up, find a place, let's have a good chat," Uchiha Madara said with a smile. Although it's not clear what happened, after seeing Uchiha Madara, Steve suddenly breathed a sigh of relief and felt relieved. Therefore, Steve did not reject Uchiha Madara's proposal, and followed behind Uchiha Madara very obediently. Because Steve is very resistant to the hospital now, Uchiha Madara did not take Steve back to the hospital. Instead, he found a small park with fewer people nearby and walked in with Steve. Although the two are each other's best friends, to be honest, Steve has been sleeping for so many years. So I feel very unfamiliar with everything around me, and naturally the whole person is also very restrained. So even in the face of Uchiha Madara, Steve inevitably felt a little nervous. Advertisement, however, Uchiha Madara understood Steve's state very well, and was not angry, but patiently gave Steve time to think. "What's going on? That person told me that the war is over, and it's 70 years later," Steve asked with a dull expression. Uchiha Madara knew that this was a very difficult thing for Steve to accept, but to be honest, Uchiha Madara didn't know how to comfort Steve. Only under Steve's expectant gaze, he nodded helplessly. AFBB, after seeing Uchiha Madara's action, Steve's eyes that were full of anticipation suddenly dimmed a lot. The whole person was very lost, and he lowered his head and didn't know what he was thinking. "Things have already happened, and the captain I know will never be defeated," Uchiha sighed and said in a soft voice. While speaking, Uchiha Madara put his hand on Steve's shoulder, hoping to comfort Steve. In fact, Steve just couldn't accept this matter calmly for a while, but he was still very clear that the matter had become a foregone conclusion. He also does not have the ability to reverse time and space, so Steve can only sigh helplessly and accept this matter. "It's just too weird for me. When I wake up, everything has changed," Steve grabbed his hair and said helplessly. Although it sounds very simple on the lips, for Steve, after waking up in such a sleep, he has nothing. So Uchiha Madara is also very clear that for the current Steve, all consolation is very pale. Perhaps rather than being salvaged, Steve would prefer to sleep in the Arctic Ocean forever, at least those good memories will remain in his mind. But Uchiha Madara didn't want Steve to sink like this, so Uchiha Madara still tried his best to try to cheer Steve up. "At least there's me anyway, don't you want to see me?" Uchiha Madara said, pretending to be annoyed. Although he knew that Uchiha Madara was just to ease his emotions, after listening to Uchiha Madara's words, a rare smile appeared on Steve's face. But soon Steve came back to his senses and remembered what happened before. Advertisement in Steve's memory, Uchiha Madara should have sunk into the Arctic Ocean with him. But now it is obvious that Uchiha Madara is very familiar with everything around him and seems to have been living for a long time. So Steve's face couldn't help but put on a curious look. Out of trust in Uchiha Madara, Steve did not hide his thoughts at all, and asked Uchiha Madara very directly. Uchiha Madara seemed very happy in the face of Steve's direct return, but this matter is a long story, and it will take some time to explain clearly. Let's go back first. The people in the hospital are probably going crazy. I'll tell you about this later. It's a bit complicated, Uchiha Madara said patiently. Steve didn't have any opinion on this arrangement either. He followed Uchiha Madara very well and returned to the hospital. The experience of Uchiha Madara seems very simple, but it is really complicated to explain it again. However, in the face of Steve, Uchiha Madara did not feel the need to hide it. After organizing the language, Uchiha Madara spoke it directly. In order to increase his credibility, Uchiha Madara also took out the time gem that had not been taken out for a long time. Looking at this gem, a look of disbelief appeared on Steve's face. "You mean that such a small thing can do that impossible thing?" Steve's eyes were full of confusion, and he asked curiously. "Of course, I didn't have to deceive you." Uchiha Madara shrugged, not surprised by Steve's shocked expression. After silently digesting it in his heart, Steve finally controlled his emotions and looked at Uchiha Madara seriously. "Don't worry, I will keep this secret for you forever." Steve's tone was full of firmness. Although Uchiha Madara didn't think it was a big deal, but seeing Steve think about himself so much, a happy smile appeared on his face. "Have a good rest, it's been 70 years, there are many new things waiting for you to learn." Uchiha Madara reached out and patted Steve's shoulder, and said with a smile. Now that he has come to this world, Steve can only learn to accept it. Chapter 328 Company Transformation, Seeking Automatic Subscription. Advertisement Chapter 328 Company Transformation. Although Steve seems to be a very gentle and honest sunny youth on the surface, but Uchiha Madara is very clear that being able to become Captain America is completely inseparable from Steve's own efforts. In fact, Steve is a very tough person. Now seeing that Steve's expression has gradually recovered, Uchiha Madara is also relieved, and Steve needs to take time to think about the next thing. Uchiha Madara didn't want to interfere with Steve's judgment either, so after a few chats, Uchiha Madara bid farewell, leaving time and space to Steve. Although his friend has finally woken up from the Arctic Ocean, Uchiha Madara has had too many things recently, and he didn't have much time to spend with Steve at all. Therefore, Uchiha Madara can only let Fredo have a little heart, and must not let Steve have any problems. Although I don't know what purpose Fury had before, he didn't tell himself the news that Steve was sober. But no matter what, Steve's contribution to this country is something that no one can refute. Therefore, although Fury has some careful thoughts, he still has no malicious intentions for Steve. Uchiha Madara believed that he would not be able to make any waves in Fury, so he gave Steve to Fury with confidence. During this time, Uchiha Madara was indeed very busy, not only to help detect the whereabouts of the Rubik's Cube, but also to do a lot of things for the Stark Group. Although Uchiha Madara has long ceased to be the CEO of Shack Group, but what is the friendship for so long? Therefore, when Tony made a request for help, Uchiha Madara naturally would not refuse. Before, the Stank Group was a weapons company, but Tony no longer wanted the benefits that were covered in blood, so he was going to turn the group into an energy company. Now that the research and development has reached the final step, it only needs to be successfully opened. As someone with extraordinary influence on both Tony and Howard, Uchiha Madara will naturally not miss such an important moment. So when Tony just made the invitation, Uchiha Madara agreed. For Stark Group, this may become a new starting point. Advertisement. It is also a very important moment for Tony, so the last step is done by Tony himself. After Tony successfully opened the new energy device in the seawater, the sign at the top of the entire Stank building was successfully lit up. Tony's arrogant laughter came from the communication system. Uchiha Madara and Pepper looked at each other, and neither attacked Tony at this time. After Tony was finished, Uchiha Madara stared at the panel and let Tony calm down a little. It is relatively stable for now, but it depends on the follow-up development. There must be no accidents at this time. 35 Uchiha Madara said very calmly. Pepper obviously had the same idea as Uchiha Madara, so he poured cold water on Tony without hesitation at this time. Don't be too happy, I will go on a business trip tomorrow, and then I will find a way to promote new energy. Pepper's tone is very calm. After becoming the CEO, Pepper's temperament has indeed undergone earth-shaking changes, but Uchiha is like a good blessing for such a change. I hope Pepper and Tony can live a good life like this. But as Iron Man, it seems that ordinary life is the hardest thing to get. So just when Tony took off his armor and returned to the villa to celebrate with Uchiha Madara and Pepper, he suddenly received a call from Coulson. Even though he has become a consultant of the Avengers, Tony still has the same temper as before, and he will not give face to anyone when he is unhappy. At this time, Tony obviously wanted to celebrate, so he let Jarvis hang up Coulson without hesitation. Uchiha Madara saw it but said nothing. If it is a more important matter, Coulson will naturally find a way to contact him, so the Uchiha class is very relaxed. After Tony came in, he never mentioned anything about Coulson's phone call, even if nothing happened. Since Tony didn't speak, Uchiha Madara and Pepper pretended not to hear. Pepper also walked to the side very calmly to open a bottle of wine, and then handed the glass to Uchiha Madara and Tony. 0. For Flowers advertisement. But when Uchiha Madara, Tony and Pepper raised their glasses to drink together, Jarvis' voice came out again. It was Mr. Coulson's call, and he tampered with the program. Jarvis' voice was as sweet as ever. But Tony didn't have the heart to appreciate it now. He picked up his mobile phone with a look of anger, and then started talking nonsense with his eyes open. Indicates that he is not there, so he will not return the call until he has time. Uchiha Madara and Pepper couldn't help laughing when they saw Tony's childish behavior. But before Tony's voice fell, there was a knock on the door outside, and then the door was suddenly opened. Then Coulson appeared in front of everyone with a document. Tony's face was not very good, but Uchiha Madara and Pepper were very calm. Mr. Coulson, why are you here? Need a drink? Pepper asked with a very calm smile on his face. But it was clear that Coulson had something very important to come over this time, and he didn't have any thoughts at all, but handed over the documents in his hand. After seeing Coulson's actions, Tony's face showed a very disgusting expression. Never take things that are handed over by others, Tony said calmly without the slightest desire to reach out and take it. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara rolled his eyes at Tony, then reached out and took the document in Coulson's hand. I don't have this hobby, give it to me, Uchiha Madara said calmly. After taking the document, Uchiha Madara shoved it directly into Tony's hands. Faced with Uchiha Madara, Tony still did not dare to resist. He could only silently take this document and walk to the side, probably to study it. What happened? You seem to be in a panic, Uchiha Madara asked curiously. Facing Uchiha Madara, naturally there's no need to keep it secret. It's a very urgent matter, you can take a look for yourself, Coulson said with a frown. Is it the Avengers? Pepper asked. Hearing this sensitive word, Coulson couldn't help but glance at Pepper B with very sharp eyes. Chapter 329 invites Steve, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 329 invites Steve. Under such sharp eyes, Pepper couldn't help shrugging and said innocently, well, I don't know anything. To be honest, this matter is considered a relatively confidential matter, and if it is usual, Coulson will definitely question it carefully. But this time, Coulson was unusually calm, as if he hadn't heard anything, standing near the door with a calm expression, waiting for Tony to read the document. This shouldn't be the time when I'm in charge of consulting, and I have nothing to do with the Avengers, Tony said a little unhappily. Uchiha Madara also knew that it was the assessment report that Fury had come up with that offended Tony, so now Tony wants to get over his mouth. It's not a big deal either, so Uchiha Madara and Pepper are not very calm and let Tony play. Although his mouth was unreasonable, Tony didn't slow down the speed of opening the file at all. Because Coulson is very aware of Tony's quirks, Coulson is very calm about Tony's complaints, as if the person who said it is not himself. SHIELD has also been sending people to find the whereabouts of the Cosmic Rubik's Cube. After so much hard work, I finally got some news. And since Dr. Banner is already willing to help, Coulson hopes that Tony can join forces with Dr. Banner to resolve this matter as soon as possible. With Tony's character, naturally he would not stand idly by about such a thing, so the celebration will naturally come to an end very hastily. Uchiha Madara didn't let up when Tony and Banner worked together. With Tony and Banner on this side, Uchiha Madara naturally went to find Steve. This time was too busy, and Uchiha Madara felt that he didn't care enough about Steve. After all, in the current situation, Steve's only friend is Uchiha class, so Uchiha Madara feels his obligation to help Steve integrate into this society. Advertisement. Although he has always acted calmly, no matter what, Steve is still a human being. When I wake up and find that all my friends are gone, I still feel a little lost and lonely. When Uchiha Madara saw Steve, he found that Steve was already sweating profusely, and there were several broken sandbags piled beside him. Probably because he wanted to vent his emotions in this way, Uchiha Madara felt that it was better to vent in this way rather than self-pity. Waiting for Steve to change the sandbags, Uchiha Madara walked in directly from the door without concealing the sound of his footsteps. It seems that although you have slept for 70 years, your strength has not declined at all. Uchiha Madara said with a smile. After hearing Uchiha Madara's voice, a smile finally appeared on Steve's face, who had been sullen. Why are you here? Are things over? Seeing Uchiha Madara, Steve was obviously very happy and asked excitedly. This matter is very complicated and probably won't be resolved in the near future, Uchiha Madara said with a sigh. Hearing Uchiha Madara say this, a worried expression appeared on Steve's face. But Uchiha Madara quickly changed his mood and asked about Steve's daily life these days. Not bad, that's it. The smile on Steve's face was slightly restrained, and then he replied to Uchiha Madara. What happened, and is there anything I can do to help? Steve asked with great concern. It can be seen that Steve does not want to say much about his current life. Uchiha Madara can also understand Steve, so he quickly chatted along Steve's topic. Although the Cosmic Cube is relatively hidden, Steve and Uchiha Madara have already seen the Cosmic Cube before the war is over. And the Cube and Hydra are also very involved, so Uchiha Madara feels that Steve is fully qualified to know about this. And this time Uchiha came over. In addition to wanting to see Steve, there was also a request from Fury. Advertisement. No matter how others object, Fury is determined to carry on the Avengers' plan. In Fury's view, Steve was a natural leader, if not the most invincible, but Steve was without a doubt the spiritual leader of all. So Fury wanted Steve to join the Avengers, but he had no friendship with Steve. And Steve, who has always been very gentle, doesn't know why this time it seems that Fury is not pleasing to the eye. That's why Fury wanted to invite Uchiha Madara out of the mountain. After all, the friendship between Uchiha Madara and Steve was circulated in history textbooks. Fury has also spoken, and Uchiha Madara feels that it is entirely up to Steve to make his own decision, so he did not refuse. Another reason is that Uchiha Madara knows too much about Steve's character. Faced with such a thing, Steve will not back down no matter what. Therefore, this task was followed, and the plan of the Avengers was also brought. You should be familiar with this thing, we have all seen it before the plane crashed. Uchiha Madara pointed to the picture of the Rubik's Cube and said. After seeing this thing, Steve's face turned gloomy all of a sudden, and he obviously remembered what he snatched from the Hydra's lair at that time. There is a very terrifying energy in it, and even a large part of my energy is the source of it, but now this thing has been taken away, Uchiha Madara explained. Hearing this, a very worried expression appeared on Steve's face. And the 1.1 situation of this matter is very complicated. Aliens are also involved in a battle to defend the Earth. Uchiha Madara's tone was unprecedentedly serious. Steve was also honed from the battlefield, and when he heard this, he naturally understood the importance of this matter. So what should we do now? Is there a way to locate this thing directly? Steve asked urgently. Relax, someone has already gone to check the whereabouts of this thing, but we need more people now, replied 39 Uchiha Madara. Hearing this, Steve naturally understood what Uchiha Madara meant. Although he has been sleeping for so many years, Steve has always felt that he is a soldier. Chapter 330 Steve joins, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 330 Steve joins. So Steve immediately showed a smile to Uchiha Madara, and his expression was very calm, as if he had seen through everything. We don't need to be so euphemistic in our friendship, just say what you need me to do. Steve's tone was very refreshing. For his best friend, Uchiha Madara naturally didn't play any tricks, and directly told Fury's plan to create the Avengers. You know my personality, I don't really want to get involved with these things, so Fury is in charge now, Uchiha Madara explained. After hearing the name coming out of Uchiha Madara's mouth, Steve was stunned for a few seconds, and then a look of understanding appeared on his face. I know that the shield he manages, salvaged me from the Arctic Ocean, Steve said in a very complicated tone. Uchiha Madara naturally knows the relationship between the two, and Steve doesn't seem to like Fury very much. Therefore, Uchiha Madara quickly crossed this topic and focused on the God O5 shield. Simply put, There are not only people on Earth, there are many other mysterious forces that are eyeing the Earth, Uchiha Madara said. Because it has been sleeping for so many years, it is not very clear about the current situation of the Earth. Therefore, Steve's expression was very serious, and he watched Uchiha Madara intently, listening to Uchiha Madara's analysis of the current situation. SHIELD is responsible for managing these things, it is a national security department, but the scope is not the same. From the fact that SHIELD was able to salvage himself, Steve knew that this was a powerful organization, so he nodded calmly. The Avengers are also managed by SHIELD, but the relationship between them is not very close. The main thing is to maintain the peace of the Earth, Uchiha Madara said succinctly. After listening to Uchiha Madara's explanation, a thoughtful look appeared on Steve's face. Advertisement, but to be honest, this matter is really not a trivial matter, so Steve did take some time to think about it. Although Uchiha Madara was asked by Fury, Steve was more important than Fury, so Uchiha Madara did not urge him at all. This matter is not in a hurry. You can think about whether you want to join everything. It's up to your will, Uchiha Madara said in a very calm tone. To be honest, Steve and Captain America are just two people. As early as World War II, Captain America has already given everything for this country. So after 70 years, Uchiha Madara hopes that Steve can live for himself, not to carry all the burden of the whole country on himself. Because he had already seen the concern in Uchiha Madara's eyes, a smile appeared on Steve's face unconsciously, and he nodded seriously to Uchiha Madara. Don't worry, I'll think about it, don't worry about me anymore, Steve said with a smile. Although what he said, Steve was too naive, so when facing an old fritter like Fury, Uchiha Madara would naturally worry that Steve would suffer. Although there are some concerns in the heart, everyone is already an adult, and Uchiha Madara is not good to interfere too much. The final choice depends on Steve himself. Therefore, Uchiha Madara's expression quickly calmed down, and he talked about the next arrangement. Let's not talk about this matter, there is still time and consideration, but this time I really need your help, Uchiha Madara said with a distressed face. Hearing this, Steve's eyes lit up, and before Uchiha Madara could say what it was, he couldn't wait to agree. What is our relationship? If you have anything, just say it directly, it's my duty, Steve said very readily. Although I am very happy to hear this, but to be honest, this is also a SHIELD thing, so Uchiha Madara did not accept it. That's what I said about the Rubik's Cube in the universe. You need to come forward, and we can snatch the Rubik's Cube back together, Uchiha Madara said in a very calm tone. Steve is also used to seeing all kinds of big things, so although he knows this is not easy, to be honest, the expression on his face is also very calm. Advertisement, of course I want to help, it's about the safety of the entire planet, Steve agreed without the slightest hesitation. Because he understood Steve's character very well, Uchiha Madara didn't say more, and immediately set an appointment with Steve. Well, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, we're going to a place first. Uchiha Madara reached out and patted Steve on the shoulder. There was also a very bright smile on Steve's face, probably recalling the days before. Time flies so fast, but after the crash, I never thought that we would still have time to fight side by side. Steve's tone was full of nostalgia. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Uchiha Madara's face. This time there will be no more surprises, we have been fighting side by side for many more days, Uchiha Madara said to Steve. It would be great if Buggy was also there. 567 The three of us fought side by side. This is the time I miss the most. Speaking of Buggy, Steve's tone dimmed for a moment. Uchiha Madara also remembered that friend with a bright smile and clear eyes, and her mood was much lower. But life is always about learning to look forward, so Uchiha Madara quickly sorted out her emotions, and even opened her mouth to comfort. It's okay, we managed to avenge Buggy after all, 35 Uchiha Madara said in as calm a tone as possible. Steve also quickly returned to normal. For an iron-blooded soldier like this, all the fragility is nothing but a momentary thing, after all, there is no chance on the battlefield to let people hurt their hearts. Stop talking about this, let's all go back to rest, we will start tomorrow, and it is estimated that it will be another tough battle. After taking a deep breath, Steve whispered to Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara didn't want to talk about those sad pasts anymore, so he followed Steve's words and changed the subject, thinking about tomorrow's events. You have a good rest, I will come to pick you up on time tomorrow. After Uchiha Madara finished speaking, he waved at Steve and left. Although it has been agreed with Steve, the matter of Uchiha Madara is far from over, and he has to hand over tomorrow's arrangements with Coulson. Chapter 331 Aircraft Carrier for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 331 Aircraft Carrier. The next day, Uchiha Madara took Coulson directly and drove the plane to the agreed place. Steve has always been a very punctual person, and after Uchiha Madara arrived with Coulson, he found that Steve was already there. After seeing Steve, Coulson seemed very excited, although the expression on his face is as calm as ever. Uchiha Madara and Coulson are still relatively familiar, and it can be seen that Coulson is excited and doesn't know what to do. Uchiha Madara thought it was a joke when Coulson said he was an admirer of himself and Steve before, but looking at Coulson's performance, he felt a little uncertain. Although he thought about many kinds of thoughts in his heart, the expression on Uchiha Madara's face was as calm as ever, and he handed a document to Steve's hands. After reading the document in his hand, Steve frowned unconsciously. So they're trying to replicate the super serum on me? Steve asked with some convoluted expressions. Many people have this idea, after all, you are the first superhero, in history. Uchiha Madara smiled and said in a mocking tone. Hearing Uchiha Madara's joke, A shy expression appeared on Steve's face, and Uchiha Madara didn't say any more. Dr. Banner believes that gamma rays will be the key to unlocking Dr. Kane's original formula, Coulson added. But obviously the experiment didn't work out, not everyone will be yours, Uchiha Madara said with a shrug. After Uchiha Madara and Steve finished speaking, Coulson couldn't help but walked up to Steve. Hello Captain, I'm Coulson, it's an honor to meet you. Coulson's face was actually a little shy. Facing this sudden self-introduction, the expression on Steve's face was a little curious, but he didn't say much, just nodded towards Coulson. Actually, I've already seen you before, when you were salvage. Coulson never left, standing in front of Steve and whispering. Advertisement because he didn't know what Coulson wanted to say, Uchiha Madara just sat in his place and watched Coulson without talking. I didn't expect you to join us this time and fight side by side with us. It's an honor, Coulson said incoherently. Under such straightforward praise, Steve was also a little embarrassed, and stood up directly from his position. Then he went to the back of the driver's seat and stared at the sea in front of him. Hopefully I won't let you down, Steve sighed and said in a somewhat worried tone. But Uchiha Madara was not happy when he heard the unconfident words. Perhaps in terms of combat effectiveness, Steve is not the strongest, but for everyone, Steve's joining is good news. There is no doubt that Steve is the spiritual leader of the whole country, so with Steve joining, Uchiha Madara believes that everyone will be more motivated. Of course you can, you have to remember that you are the captain that everyone admires, Uchiha Madara said in a very affirmative tone. In any case, the trust from friends is what makes Steve very happy. When Uchiha Madara communicated with Steve, the plane was flying forward very smoothly and quickly arrived at the destination. It is an aircraft carrier docked on the sea, although it is just an aircraft carrier, but all kinds of equipment are very complete. After getting off the plane, Uchiha Madara saw that Romanov was already waiting for him below. Coulson seemed to have other things to deal with, and left after handing Uchiha Madara and Steve to Romanov. Because Uchiha Madara and Romanov were already very familiar with each other, they didn't bother to make that kind of false self-introduction, but just introduced them to Steve. You are the man of the year here. I thought Coulson would faint when he saw you. Romanov smiled at Steve. By the way, did he ask you to sign his collection? Romanov asked curiously. Hearing this sentence, Madara couldn't help showing a curious expression, obviously very interested in the treasure that Romanov said. Advertisement, collection. What is that? Before Uchiha Madara could speak, Steve asked directly. Although there was no expression on his face, Uchiha Madara was already very curious in his heart, and he pricked up his ears unconsciously. That is the treasure he is proud of, and it is estimated that he will come to you soon. A mysterious smile appeared on Romanov's face, and he did not say much. Although there is no accurate answer, but Uchiha Madara almost guessed it. But since Coulson didn't take it out himself, Uchiha Madara wouldn't say anything, just walked by with a calm expression. Now the aircraft carrier is very lively. Uchiha Madara heard a familiar voice coming from the front, and unconsciously raised his head and looked over. Then Uchiha Madara found that Banner was already on the aircraft carrier, and Banner just raised his head and looked over. Banner naturally saw Uchiha Madara at a glance, with a smile on his face, and then walked towards Uchiha Madara. Backquote: This is Dr. Banner, who is in charge of the tracking of the Rubik's Cube this time. Knowing that Steve didn't know anyone, Uchiha Madara introduced Steve. At this time, Banner had already walked in front of Uchiha Madara and gave Uchiha Madara a very warm hug. I haven't seen you for a few days. It seems that you are looking good. Is your research going well? Uchiha Madara smiled at Banner and asked with concern. It's not, Li Wangchao, wrong, but it does take some time, Banner replied, and then glanced curiously at Steve next to Uchiha Madara. This is my good friend, Steve Rogers. Uchiha Madara introduced each other. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, the two looked at each other and shook hands very friendly. Can you help find the Universe Cube? This matter is very urgent. Steve held Banner's hand and asked. I thought you would be more curious about my other things, but I didn't expect to only focus on the Universe Cube, Banner said jokingly. No way, after all, I'm here for this matter, it's better to solve it as soon as possible. Steve is not embarrassed at all about Banner's joke. After chatting for a few words, there were strange movements around, and Steve looked at the surrounding sea with some curiosity. Chapter 332 Determine the location, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 332 Determining the location. Although he arrived on the aircraft carrier a little earlier than Steve, to be honest, Banner did not know much about this aircraft carrier. Therefore, after hearing this strange sound, Steve and Banner glanced at each other, and both walked to the edge of the aircraft carrier, watching the movement under the sea. This matter is relatively important and relatively secret, so in order to prevent any accidents, it is natural to have some special measures. Therefore, when Steve and Banner walked to the edge of the aircraft carrier, they saw several engines appearing underneath, and the entire aircraft carrier was constantly shaking. After the shaking continued for a while, the entire aircraft carrier broke away from the water and flew high into the air. For Steve, this scene was indeed a little surprising, so Steve's face unconsciously put on a shocked expression. The expression on Dr. Banner's face was not much better. Although he was a scientific researcher, Dr. Banner was only in charge of biological research after all. After admiring the funny expressions of the two, Uchiha Madara coughed lightly, drawing the attention of the two back. Let's go, I'll take you to see Fury, he should still be waiting for us? Uchiha Madara asked the last sentence looking at Natasha. After hearing Uchiha Madara's question, Natasha nodded towards Uchiha Madara with a natural expression on her face. After their curiosity was satisfied, Steve and Banner naturally didn't want to waste any more time, so they followed behind Uchiha Madara and Natasha. After entering the interior of the aircraft carrier, I found that it is indeed a unique place, with various high-tech equipment emerging one after another. And the security inside is also very strict, and all kinds of technicians are very busy focusing on the things at hand. Because it was too busy, no one showed any concern to the entry of Uchiha Madara and others. Uchiha Madara only heard that Fury seemed to be giving the last order, and then the technicians rushed to operate. Because it is inside the aircraft carrier, it is impossible to see the outside situation at all. If Uchiha Madara is out now, would be very surprised to find out. Advertisement as Fury answered the final order number. This behemoth-like aircraft carrier actually seemed to be invisible, completely integrated with the sky. After finishing everything at hand, Fury walked towards Uchiha Madara and others with a smile on his face. "Welcome, gentlemen, thank you for your willingness to come and help us this time," Fury said with a smile. But this set is of no use here in Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara just gave Fury a slightly cold look. Steve looked at the interior of the aircraft carrier with a curious look on his face, and didn't have a particularly big reaction to Fury's words, but Banner reached out and shook Fury's outstretched hand. "So when can I leave?" Banner asked unceremoniously. Fury smiled after listening to this question. "After you find a universe cube, you can leave at any time," Fury replied very readily. Except for Tony and Uchiha Madara, Banner didn't trust anyone else very much, and he was always apprehensive before coming. Banner is also relieved now that he has received Fury's assurance. "How is the current progress?" After relaxing, Banner asked about the current situation. "We monitor every wirelessly connected camera on the planet," Coulson, who was already here, replied to Dr. Banner. "But it's a complete needle in a haystack. There are so many people using the internet that it should be narrowed down." Uchiha Madara frowned and said with some disapproval. Obviously, Dr. Banner was also on Uchiha Madara's side, and he directly spoke his thoughts. "How many spectra can you find?" Dr. Banner asked very directly. "How much do you need?" Fury asked rhetorically. "How many are there to find more, Rear Admiral?" "They are all set up at a high place, aiming at the gamma rays. I will use the formula to track AFBB, directly find the source." When talking about his major, Dr. Banner seemed particularly confident. Obviously, Dr. Banner is the professional one, so after hearing Banner's arrangement, Fury immediately agreed. "Romanov, take the doctor to his laboratory," Fury said to Natasha. Advertisement. After hearing Fury's words, Natasha immediately stood up and took Fury to the laboratory. Before leaving, though, Banner glanced at Uchiha Madara and left with Natasha after Uchiha Madara nodded. After Banner left, Uchiha Madara and Fury talked about the next arrangement. Steve was standing next to Coulson, who seemed to have something to say to Steve. After a few simple chats, I suddenly heard a very surprised voice from the technicians. "We have found the target with an agreement of more than 80%, a staff member said with surprise. "This is excellent news for all, so all eyes are drawn to the past." Knowing that everyone was looking forward to it, the researcher didn't give a shit, and immediately transferred the information he found. Uchiha Madara put his eyes on the computer screen and saw at a glance that this was the Loki he had seen once before. "Where are they now?" "Detailed location," Uchiha Madara said with some eagerness. While Uchiha Madara was speaking, the technician was also operating non-stop and finally successfully locked the detailed positions of Loki and others. At number 45 Changning Street in Stuttgart, he doesn't seem to want to hide his location at all, because it was too easy, the technician said with some suspicion. Although what this technician said was very reasonable, but Uchiha Madara didn't want to play with Loki at all, and just wanted to quickly grab the universe cube back. So no matter what tricks Loki is playing, Uchiha Madara won't hold back. Fury obviously had the same idea. After the technician gave the detailed address, he turned his attention to Uchiha Madara and Steve. "It's up to you this time." Fury's tone was full of expectations. Although they knew that Loki should be very difficult to solve, the eyes of Uchiha Madara and Steve were full of firmness, and they didn't mean to retreat at all. "Don't worry, leave it to us," Uchiha Madara said with a relaxed expression, and then pushed Steve to prepare various equipment. After all, this is a tough battle, and it is said that an unprepared battle cannot be fought. Chapter 333. Catch it easily, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 333. And although Steve is Captain America, strengthened by the super soldier serum, compared with Uchiha Madara, Steve can be regarded as an ordinary earthling. After waking up, this is the first time Steve has touched his own uniform. After putting on the uniform, there was a very strange light in Steve's eyes. But now is not the time to be sad, and when he is ready, Steve gathers his men and prepares to set off with Uchiha Madara. After rushing to the previously determined position, Uchiha Madara found that Loki had already started to move. From Uchiha Madara's point of view, Loki is simply a middle-aged patient, and he is already the one with no cure for the advanced stage. When Uchiha Madara and Steve arrived, Loki had everyone on their knees. And Loki himself stood there and made some unexplained speeches, and he didn't know what he wanted to express. However, after Loki finished his remarks that human beings should be attacked to live like slaves, an old man suddenly stood up in the crowd. "Even so, it shouldn't be against someone like you," the old man said in a very firm tone. "People like me, I'm unique." A sneer appeared on Loki's face, and then he said proudly, "I've seen a lot of neurotics like you." The old man snorted coldly, ignoring Loki at all. Naturally, someone who suffers from a middle-aged illness like Shang Loki is not allowed to talk to him like this. Therefore, although there was still a smile on his face, Loki's eyes had already cooled down, and he pointed at the old man with the scepter in his hand. Look at this old guy, he is your role model. Loki's tone was full of indifference, looking at the old man's eyes as if he was looking at a dying man. But at this time Uchiha Madara and Steve had already rushed over, so naturally it was impossible to watch. Loki hurt innocent people in broad daylight. When Loki took his scepter and wanted to shoot down the old man with energy. Advertisement Uchiha Madara grabbed the shield in Steve's hand and threw it out, just in front of the old man. Then Uchiha Madara and Steve jumped straight into the crowd, looking at Loki with indifference. The last time I came here, there was also a man who put himself above the others, but was dealt with, Uchiha Madara said with a look of disdain. At this time, Loki had also crawled up from the ground in embarrassment, and looked at Uchiha Madara and Steve with a gloomy face. Where did the outdated soldiers come from? Since they are outdated, they should not appear in this world, Loki said fiercely. But to be honest, in this case, it doesn't hurt at all for Uchiha Madara and Steve. I don't think we're out of date, but I haven't heard your theory for many years, Uchiha Madara directly countered. At this time, the planes behind them were already driving over, and they stopped directly above this area. Rocky, you are now surrounded, put down your weapons and surrender quickly. Natasha's voice came from the plane. Although Uchiha Madara felt that for someone like Loki, this kind of persuasion was completely useless. But in any case, this is in other countries after all, so the process that should be followed has to go through again. However, before the voiceover there fell, Loki's face turned gloomy all of a sudden, and he pointed his scepter directly at the helicopter driven by Natasha. Obviously, she wanted to destroy the plane directly. Fortunately, Natasha responded very quickly, and immediately deflected the helicopter in one direction. From this move of Loki, we can see Loki's choice. Since Loki is so stubborn, Uchiha Madara and Steve have absolutely no need to show mercy. But before he started, Uchiha Madara reminded himself again, no matter what, Loki is the second prince of God's domain. So even if he regenerates his anger, Uchiha Madara will still be measured, at least he will not kill them all. After all, what is Loki's status in God's domain now, and Uchiha Madara doesn't know. There is absolutely no need to offend the divine realm because of some trivial matters. Although you are not afraid of troubles, some troubles can be avoided, so there is absolutely no need to make extra troubles. Advertisement. 0. For flowers. During the fight, Uchiha Madara did not forget to remind these ordinary civilians who were still kneeling on the ground to leave quickly. This is a place of right and wrong. Although possessing magical magic, Loki is simply a rookie when it comes to confrontation by force. Uchiha and Steve cooperated with 3 or 2 moves to solve Loki. After being knocked to the ground, Loki's eyes were full of dissatisfaction, but Uchiha Madara ignored it. At this time, Tony also rushed over, but things here are almost over. Uchiha Madara saw the opportunity, took a big step forward, and directly grabbed Loki's neck with his hands. Put down the weapon in your hand, don't force me to die. Uchiha Madara's voice was very indifferent. Although I don't know what Loki is thinking in his heart, but on the surface Loki is still a very knowledgeable person. After hearing Uchiha-like words, he slowly raised his hands and put down his weapon obediently. Loki was wearing a low-colored armor before, and he was wearing that helmet with 2 big horns on top of his head. But at this time, Loki has also become a normal person. If you don't look at the abilities that Loki possesses, there is no difference between looking at the appearance of Loki and Earthlings. I didn't expect to be able to subdue Loki so easily, and even Uchiha Madara's eyes were filled with surprise. But no matter what, today's task can be considered completed, and now it is only necessary to escort Loki back. When I was on the plane, I received a call from Fury to inquire about the situation here. After hearing that Loki had been captured, Fury was also relieved. However, Uchiha Madara and others did not relax at all. After all, Loki is very insidious and cunning. Although he is sitting very quietly in the back seat of the plane, no one knows what little juju is in Loki's heart. I don't think this matter is so simple. How could he be caught so easily? Tony frowned and said something strange. I also find it strange that this guy's strength is very strong. Steve also agreed with Tony's point of view. For an old man like you, your observation skills are not bad. This is barely a compliment, but Tony's words just make people feel awkward. Chapter 334. Thor steals people, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 334. Thor steals people. Although Tony's words are not very pleasant, but fortunately Steve's temper is very gentle. Tony's yin and yang compliment was nothing but a smile, and he didn't say much at all. Of them all, Uchiha Madara is probably the one who knows Loki best. But at this time, Uchiha Madara doesn't know what the hell Loki is doing. But no matter what, Uchiha Madara knew that Loki must have no good intentions. Just as Uchiha Madara was lost in thought, while Steve and Tony were talking, lightning suddenly began to thunder outside. You must know that it is on the plane now, and the weather is completely unfavorable for flying. Now Natasha, who is driving the plane, has changed her face. What's going on? The thunder suddenly started, and the 5, 6, 7 mood is too strange today. Natasha frowned, a hint of surprise in her tone. The first reaction of Uchiha Madara and others was to look at Loki, who was sitting in the chair, but Loki's expression was not very good now. Why are you still afraid of thunder? Tony asked in a mocking tone when he saw Loki's expression. For Tony's question, Loki frowned in disgust. I'm not afraid of thunder, but I just don't like the guy who will come over later. Loki's tone was full of disgust. Hearing this, Steve and the others showed puzzled expressions on their faces, completely unaware of what Loki was talking about. After all, in the eyes of Steve and the others, the weather outside was just a sudden change, but how could someone suddenly appear in the air now? But as soon as Loki's voice fell, Uchiha Madara immediately understood what Loki meant. It seems that not only did Loki arrive on Earth, but Thor also followed. I just don't know why Thor came this time. If it was to cover up Loki, Uchiha would never allow such a thing to happen. After thinking about this, Uchiha Madara also became calm, got up and stayed in his position with a calm face, waiting for Thor to arrive. Advertisement at this time, the weather outside became more and more severe, and then something landed directly on the top of the plane. Then the plane began to shake violently. After realizing this, both Steve and Tony's expressions changed. Tony took his helmet without saying a word, and after coming over to arm himself, he flew out. Seeing this scene, Steve looked at Uchiha Madara with some surprise, and his eyes were full of questions. But for Uchiha Madara it wasn't a big deal, after all, there were uneasy people out there. Immediately after, Uchiha Madara gestured with his eyes, and Steve asked Steve to take care of Loki, and he chased him out. After all, Thor is the god of thunder and Iron Man is fearless, but there is still some fear of thunder. But after Uchiha Madara went out, he found that Tony was floating in the air, but there was no shadow of Thor at all. After realizing this, Uchiha Madara dragged Tony directly back into the plane. However, it was too late at this time, only to see a red figure dragging Loki and rushing out. Because all this happened so suddenly, Steve didn't react, and looked at it with a stunned look. Who is that guy? Is he also a person from God's domain? Natasha sat in her driver's seat and asked with a louder voice. Is that guy my own? Steve also asked curiously. But for Uchiha Madara, it doesn't matter now, what matters is that Loki was taken away. Then the cosmic Rubik's Cube is naturally taken away, after all, Loki knows the location of the cosmic Rubik's Cube. It's not important, the important thing is that the whereabouts of the cube is gone. Uchiha Madara said with a cold face. After saying this, Uchiha Madara was going to go to Thor directly. Tony's character was similar to Uchiha Madara, and he also had this idea. However, Tony's character was even hotter, and he rushed out without saying a word. For Steve, this scene was definitely a big shock. Don't we all need to make a battle plan? Steve asked, dumbfounded. Advertisement Uchiha Madara has long been used to Tony's character, so I'm not surprised to see this scene, and I just shrugged at Steve's question. There is no plan, for Tony the plan is to fight now, Uchiha Madara said in a very calm tone. Now that Uchiha Madara has said so, Steve has no choice but to take the parachute on the side and prepare to go with him. No one wants to control him, these are legendary people, basically gods. Natasha used a very worried tone. Uchiha Madara was completely indifferent to this remark. I'm the only god in my world, I don't dress up like that. Uchiha Madara's tone was very flat. Since Uchiha Madara has said so, Natasha will naturally not say more, and can only watch Uchiha Madara lead Steve and Tony to chase out. After Steve got his gear, Uchiha Madara stopped wasting time, dragged Steve and flew out. By the time Uchiha Madara and Steve felt it, Thor and Tony were already on the same page. Uchiha Madara is not surprised by this result. After all, the tempers of these two people are bad, and it is entirely possible for them to start a fight if they disagree. If it was in normal times, no matter how dark the two of them were fighting, Uchiha Madara would not have the slightest opinion, but the importance of the matter should be clearly distinguished. Therefore, when the two were fighting, Uchiha Madara stopped right next to the two, and then kicked the two directly. Enough? Interesting? Do you want to make another space for you? Uchiha Madara said sarcastically. After hearing Uchiha Madara's voice, the movements of the two finally stopped. Tell me, what exactly is your purpose here? Uchiha Madara asked with a cold face. I'm here to stop Loki's conspiracy. Thor raised his volume and shouted loudly. Then prove to us. Drop the hammer in your hand, Steve said, standing beside Uchiha Madara. But after hearing this, the expression on Thor's face suddenly changed, and the whole person was very excited. You actually asked me to put down the hammer in my hand? Thor shouted angrily. Chapter 335 agreed, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 335 agreed immediately afterwards. Thor raised the hammer in his hand high and smashed it in the direction of Steve. Steve reacted very quickly and picked up the shield in his hand to block the front, but with Uchiha Madara around, naturally such a thing would not happen. Therefore, when Thor started, Uchiha Madara just stretched out his right hand with a calm face, and fired an energy beam in the palm of his hand. Immediately afterwards, it intertwined with the thunder and lightning released from Thor's hammer of thunder, and the two forces fought against each other, and no one was willing to give in. Then the two forces exploded directly in midair, causing a very big movement, and Bodor fell back several steps with this shock. After waiting for the shockwave to pass, Uchiha Madara looked at Thor who stood up in a state of embarrassment, and the expression on his face was not very good. Are you awake now? If you are awake, have a good talk. If you are still awake, I can help. Uchiha Madara's tone was unprecedentedly indifferent. But after seeing Uchiha Madara's shot, Thor looked at Uchiha Madara suddenly and very complicatedly. Are you the one who helped us in the town before? Thor asked, looking at Uchiha Madara. At this time, Uchiha Madara also remembered what happened at that time, and nodded to Thor angrily. It's me, then I don't know, it turned out to be a big trouble for myself. When he said this, Uchiha Madara's face was indeed not very good. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Thor's face also showed a slightly embarrassed expression. Sorry, there may be some misunderstanding, I did come to stop Loki. Thor explained to Uchiha Madara with some embarrassment. In fact, Uchiha Madara never doubted the purpose of Thor's coming to Earth. It's just that Thor's temper is really bad, and if he doesn't say a word, it directly leads to a conflict. However, Uchiha Madara didn't plan to completely tear his face with God Domain, so after hearing Thor's explanation, the expression on his face eased a lot. Obviously our purpose is the same, so can we take Loki now? Uchiha Madara said irresistibly. Advertisement. Although Uchiha Madara uses interrogative sentences, the taste is very firm. However, Thor obviously had his own considerations, and when he heard this, there was an embarrassed expression on his face. In fact, Uchiha Madara can almost understand Thor's inner thoughts, but Uchiha Madara is not ready to back down on this matter. In the final analysis, Thor still feels that he is a person from the realm of the gods. Even though Loki has done so much, Thor sees Loki as his younger brother. In Thor's view, things in the gods' domain should naturally be resolved by the gods' domain, so bringing Loki back is the best choice. However, the whereabouts of the cosmic Rubik's Cube has not yet been clarified, and it is naturally impossible for Uchiha Madara to let the culprit leave so gracefully. I have to take Loki away. If the whereabouts of the universe cube are not known, Loki must not leave. Uchiha Madara's tone was very tough. After thinking for a moment, Thor still chose to compromise. I can hand Loki over, but you have to promise me one condition. Glancing at Uchiha Madara, Thor said in a very serious tone. It would be better if things could be resolved peacefully. Uchiha Madara didn't like to have extra troubles, so he did not completely reject Thor's request. Let's talk about it first. It's not a particularly important matter, I can call the shots and promise you. Uchiha Madara replied in a very calm tone. After the matter is over, I will take Loki back to God's domain, you can't stop it, Thor said very seriously. For Uchiha Madara, it's just a matter of indifference. As long as the universe cube is found, who cares about Loki's life or death? So after hearing Thor's request, Uchiha Madara almost hesitated to answer. Yes, but I hope you can take good care of him after returning to God's domain. I don't want such a thing to happen again. Uchiha Madara also took the opportunity to make his own request. But this time Thor's temper was not bad, and he didn't get angry after hearing Uchiha Madara's request. Then it's settled. I hope you don't regret it when the time comes. Thor smiled at Uchiha Madara and said in a very loud voice. Advertisement, of course I won't go back on it, I hope you can do what you say, Uchiha Madara said with a serious face. This matter was settled peacefully like this, and after talking to Thor, Uchiha Madara turned to look at Loki, who was thrown on the side of the mountain. Because his staff has been confiscated, there seems to be no big difference between the current Loki and ordinary people. Very obediently weighing on the mountain, he didn't even think about escaping. It was possible that he couldn't escape because he couldn't escape at all. After signaling Steve to tie Loki's hands, Uchiha Madara took the others back to the aircraft carrier. For prisoners like Loki, Fury was very careful. Not only did they send a lot of heavily armed soldiers to follow behind Loki, but there was also a special prison that had been prepared for a long time, and Loki was imprisoned in it. Now that the person has been delivered, Uchiha Madara is naturally too lazy to ask about the follow-up. The person has already been handed over to you. I hope you don't lose it, I don't want to catch it a second time. Madara glanced at Fury and said meaningfully. Hearing Uchiha Madara's reminder, or warning, a slightly embarrassed smile appeared on Fury's face. Don't worry, I will let someone keep him well, and there will be no problem, Fury assured Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara didn't believe it or not, just nodded to Fury, then turned and left. Uchiha Madara didn't have the slightest interest in that legendary special cell either, and went without hesitation. It's just that the location of the cell was monitored, and when Uchiha Madara returned to the hall, he found that everyone gathered together and stared intently at the screen. His mission has already been completed, and Uchiha Madara doesn't want to listen to Loki's rhetoric here. After all, Loki was completely caught by the fact that the dog couldn't spit out ivory, and up to now, he still opened his mouth and closed his mouth. Uchiha Madara didn't want to waste his energy on such a person at all, so after saying hello to everyone, Uchiha Madara went to rest. After all, the size of this aircraft carrier is terrifyingly large, and it is very easy for Uchiha Madara to find a room to rest. Before Uchiha Madara went to rest, Thor looked at Uchiha Madara hesitantly, as if he had something to say. Chapter 336 Analysis, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 336 Analysis. But after hesitating for a long time, Thor did not speak, and Uchiha Madara ignored it and went straight back to his room. But in the end, Uchiha Madara couldn't rest for long, but just a few hours later, he was called by Steve, and it seemed that Fury's interrogation of Loki was over. But Loki was very stubborn, and Fury didn't seem to get any useful news. After Uchiha Madara went out, he found that Steve and Dr. Banner's people were outside, and everyone formed a circle, seemingly discussing Loki's ultimate goal. Loki is just procrastinating, so Thor, what is his purpose? Steve glanced at Thor and asked with a serious face. Since they were all trying to stop Loki's conspiracy, Thor stopped hiding and told the news he knew. He has an army of Chitauris from an unknown world who will help Loki attack Earth, Thor said with a frown. I guess he should use the universe Rubik's Cube as an exchange, after all, there is no free lunch in the world, Uchiha Madara replied. Others also hold the same idea as Uchiha Madara, otherwise there is no need for the Chitauri army to help Loki at all. But then things get complicated. With an army, and it's still from outer space, that's a little tricky, Steve said, looking at Uchiha Madara. But also, it's not easy for him to send his entire army to Earth, said Uchiha Madara. Yes, he may also build a portal, which may be the purpose of taking Selvig away. Banner said his thoughts aside. Selvig? Thor's tone was full of surprise and worry. An astrophysicist, as if you should know him, Uchiha Madara briefly explained. That's right, he's my good friend. Thor frowned, his eyes filled with worry. Advertisement. You must know that Loki is Thor's brother. Now that Loki does such a thing, Thor also has an inescapable responsibility. So when talking about this topic, Natasha no longer sits on the sidelines and directly tells all the crimes that Loki committed. He also controlled a colleague of mine. Natasha's voice was full of displeasure. After hearing Natasha's accusation, Thor opened his mouth to explain. But Uchiha Madara didn't give this opportunity at all, and directly asked the most crucial thing this time. Why on earth did Loki surrender so easily? He didn't even struggle. Uchiha Madara asked Thor, looking directly into Thor's eyes. I think maybe we shouldn't focus all our attention on Loki. He's a lunatic, his brain circuits are completely abnormal. Banner couldn't help but interject. But after hearing Banner's words, Thor's face suddenly turned gloomy, and he was obviously a little unhappy about this statement. Pay attention to the words you say. Even if Loki loses his mind, he is still a person from the god's domain and my brother, Thor said very unhappily. But to be honest, Uchiha Madara is also very unhappy with Thor's attitude, and now it's all about Loki running to the earth for no reason. Although he doesn't want to be an enemy of God's domain, it doesn't mean that God's domain can be a high-ranking attitude. Uchiha Madara hopes that Thor will know who is the master of the earth. He killed 80 innocent people in 2 days. I don't think he is a normal person. He is indeed a complete lunatic, Uchiha Madara said very upset. After Uchiha Madara spoke, he took off and changed his attitude, and finally no longer bothered about what Dr. Banner said before. Well, he was adopted, but there will be no next time. I will educate him. Thor chose to back down. Uchiha Madara also didn't want to have an infighting at this time, so he just skipped this topic and talked about other things. Tell me about the technology, Banner. What do you think they need to make the portal? Uchiha Madara glanced at Banner and asked. Iridium, a very stable intermediary, Banner said after thinking for a moment. Advertisement. But everyone didn't know much about these things, and they didn't know how to speak. At this moment, Tony walked in. Wow, it's really lively here, Tony pretended to be surprised. But this time is not the time to joke, so everyone's reaction to Tony's words is not very big. No one responded that Tony wasn't angry and he could go on talking on his own. Backquote. Agent Patton can easily obtain other materials, but he only lacks the most important energy source, a high-density energy, Tony explained. They're going to use this high-density energy to activate magic? Uchiha Madara asked after thinking for a while, and then she almost understood. Tony shrugged at this question, then nodded to Uchiha Madara. When did you know so much about astrophysics? Said an agent looking at Tony in surprise. It was mentioned in Selvig's notes last night. Didn't you all do your homework? Tony said with a look of surprise. Uchiha Madara felt ashamed of Tony's smug expression now, and ignored Tony directly. So what kind of special energy is needed? Uchiha Madara directly grabbed the most core thing and asked. They need to heat the Rubik's Cube to about 1.2 billion, otherwise there is no way to open the channel. Banner's voice, Li Wangchao, came from behind and explained to everyone. That's right, unless Selvig has mastered the method of stabilizing the quantum tunneling effect. Tony nodded and added trembling. If he masters this method, he can use any reactor to achieve heavy ion fusion. Dr. Banner continued Tony's words. But this knowledge is too professional, so Uchiha Madara and others are confused, and they don't understand what they are talking about. Fortunately, Uchiha Madara and others do not need to do any research at all. Even if they don't understand it, there is no big problem. Just when everyone looked at each other in dismay, Fury, who had been seeing the dragon all the time, finally walked in from the outside. Dr. Banner is here to track the trace of the universe Rubik's Cube. I hope you can cooperate with the doctor. Fury looked at Tony and said seriously. Chapter 337 Doubt, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 337 Doubt. Let's start with Loki's scepter. I feel a very familiar energy on it. After thinking for a moment, Uchiha Madara offered his opinion. Steve nodded immediately, obviously holding the same thoughts as Uchiha Madara. Yes, I think the way this scepter works is very similar to Hydra's Rubik's Cube, Steve said in agreement. You don't feel wrong, the power on the scepter comes from the Universe Cube, Fury explained. No wonder Uchiha Madara thinks Loki's scepter is so familiar. A large part of Uchiha Madara's energy also comes from the Universe Cube. Because the two powers come from the same place, there will naturally be a very wonderful feeling. And I also really want to know what method Loki used to turn the two most astute people I know into his flying monkeys. 95. When thinking of this incident, Fury's expression was full of unhappiness. After all, Agent Patton was Fury's capable man. What flying monkey? I don't understand very well. Thor's expression was full of doubts, and he didn't understand the meaning of the word at all. I understand. I know this stock. I saw it a few days ago. Steve immediately took over the conversation and said happily. But there is something inexplicable about this topic, so everyone did not continue to chat. Tony glanced at Banner at 570, and invited Banner to do experiments and research together. Now the whereabouts of the Universe Cube have not been found, and the legendary Chidori army does not know where to open the portal. So Uchiha Madara had nothing to do. After sitting for a while, Uchiha Madara took Steve to the laboratory. Tony and Dr. Banner are conducting research very seriously, but Tony's character is determined, and it will definitely not be a quiet research. When Uchiha Madara and Steve entered the laboratory, they found that the mud was removed. They didn't know what they were chatting with Ben, and the expressions on their faces were very happy. And Tony suddenly took the screwdriver in his hand and pointed to Dr. Banner's waist and abdomen, as if he was getting off Dr. Banner. Seeing this scene, the expression on Steve's face was a little unhappy. Advertisement, because Steve is the kind of person who is very serious in everything he does, so he can't see Tony's hippie smile. Although it didn't matter, Steve spoke up, and Uchiha Madara didn't say anything, just stood and watched quietly. AFBB, Mr. Stark, I hope you can carry out the experiment more seriously, Steve said unhappily. I think I'm very serious, don't be like an old antique, there is a lot of fun in life. Tony shrugged and said indifferently. Is this what you mean by seriousness? I think you should be more cautious when it comes to the lives of the entire aircraft carrier, Steve said with a frown. Then Steve glanced at Banner with some embarrassment and showed an apologetic smile. Sorry, Doctor didn't mean to offend, Steve said very politely. Banner's temper was actually very mild, and he was not angry at Steve's unintentional offense, and shook his head calmly. It's okay, if I can't bear it at all, I won't come here, Banner said very nicely. Anyway, Mr. Stark, I think you should focus on solving the problems we are facing now, Steve said to Tony with a serious face. But when it comes to this topic, the expression on Tony's face is not very good. Do you think I'm not serious about solving the problem? I think I'm very serious, Tony said a little unhappily. Immediately afterwards, the expression on Tony's face suddenly became serious, and he looked at Uchiha Madara seriously. Why did Fury come to us now, and what was he doing before? What was he hiding from us? Tony asked one question after another. If the information is incomplete, I have no way to solve the problem in front of me, Tony shrugged and said helplessly. After listening to Tony's words, Steve also showed a thoughtful expression on his face. So you mean that Fury is hiding something from us? Steve asked in a suspicious tone. Advertisement, you have to understand that Captain, he is a spy, the king of spies, and he has a lot of secrets from the master. We should be thinking about this too, right? Tony grabbed a bag of snacks next to him, and ate and talked, and then threw the topic to Uchiha Madara and Banner. I don't know anything, I just want to focus on the job at hand, said Dr. Banner, shaking his head. Hearing Dr. Banner's words, Uchiha Madara smiled and said, Doctor? After hearing Uchiha Madara's voice, Dr. Banner sighed helplessly, and then put down all the tools he had. Light a beacon for all mankind, this is what Loki said to Fury. Banner took off his glasses and said thoughtfully. Because Uchiha Madara was resting before, it was not clear what Fury and Loki said during the cross-examination, so they just stood by and listened quietly. I noticed that too, Steve said with a nod. I think the sentence is referring to you, and even though Patton didn't tell Loki about it, the Stark building news was everywhere, Banner explained. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara also showed a thoughtful expression, and Steve tried his best to recall the news storage in his mind. Stark building? Is that the big ugly building? Steve said rudely. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara quickly took over the conversation. The personalities of Steve and Tony are simply extreme, and they can quarrel if they disagree. Uchiha Madara was really fed up, and mediated between the two, so he simply strangled the signs in the cradle. The arc reactor that powers the building is self-sufficient, Uchiha Madara explained to Steve. After all, Uchiha Madara took a lot of time and energy to build this building, so it is very understanding. That building should not need external energy supply within a year, right? Banner's face John couldn't help showing an expression of amazement, and said to Tony. It's just an initial prototype. I should be the first person in the clean energy world today. After answering Banner's question, Tony glanced at Steve and said. After listening to this unreasonable chat, Steve still frowned, not understanding what everyone was trying to express. Chapter 338 Quarrel, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 338 Quarrel. Seeing Steve's frowning and puzzled expression, Uchiha Madara couldn't help laughing. Uchiha Madara barely managed to hold back her laughter after Steve's unsatisfactory eyes turned to him. Don't frown, look like an old man, Uchiha Madara said jokingly. In the face of Uchiha Madara, the only best friend in the world, Steve showed an excellent good temper. Even though Uchiha Madara was laughing at himself, Steve didn't mean to be angry at all, just glanced at Uchiha Madara helplessly. Okay, let's change the subject and think about what Fury is hiding. Uchiha Madara coughed and quickly changed the subject. Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, the expression on Steve's face also became serious, and he looked at Uchiha Madara seriously. Although Steve didn't know exactly what Fury was hiding, but looking at Uchiha Madara's attitude, it was obvious that he had the same idea as Tony. Therefore, the expression on Steve's face is very serious, and there is some sadness. In fact, Uchiha Madara minus can understand Steve's inner feelings. After all, Fury was the first person Steve came into contact with after waking up. Although he is not very close to Fury, no matter what, Fury still has a unique meaning to Steve. But Dr. Banner didn't know much about this delicate mind, and pointed out the problem directly. Why didn't S.H.I.E.L.D. recruit Tony into the Rubik's Cube program, and why would they want to get involved in the energy industry? Banner shrugged and said very bluntly. Advertisement. After listening to these questions, the expression on Steve's face became even more confused. I think I should investigate carefully. When I crack the encrypted files of S.H.I.E.L.D., I will know everything, Tony said very directly. But Tony's behavior shocked Steve very much. After all, Steve has always followed the rules, and he can't figure out why Tony would do this. Sorry, what did you just say? I don't think I understood. Steve looked at Tony with a surprised expression and asked. From the moment I got here, I've asked Jarvis to start cracking the encrypted files of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'll get the answer soon, Tony said indifferently. However, Tony's nonchalant attitude made Steve very annoyed, and Steve looked at Tony angrily. Do you know what you are doing now? We just need to obey after receiving the order, Steve said angrily. But if you can hear that, then Tony is not Tony. So for Steve's advice, Tony just ignored the soft and hard attitude and ignored it at all. That's you, that's not my style, Tony shrugged and answered without giving in at all. So you only care about your legendary style now? Everyone should work together at this time, Steve retorted very angrily. Come on, who was wearing the fancy and useless clothes first? Tony was probably too angry, and he was a little bit speechless. Look, it's because of your character, why didn't you get recruited? Don't you know? Steve said in a very calm tone. That's because they don't know pigs, and they don't even know that they have missed a complete genius, Tony said with a feigned disdain. Advertisement seeing that the two of them were really going to fight, Uchiha Madara sighed helplessly, and then quickly stopped Steve and Tony from continuing to communicate. I really don't know what happened to these two people, it was obviously the first time they met. And it's usually easier to talk when they are alone, but once they get together, it becomes like this. Uchiha Madara didn't know how to explain this phenomenon, and could only sigh helplessly. But the two popularity fields are not compatible, and this is not something that Uchiha Madara can control. Have you had enough trouble? Are you here to quarrel now? Do you want to see who is better? I'll be the referee for you, Uchiha Madara said angrily. Seeing Uchiha Madara's angry eyes, both Tony and Steve obediently shut their mouths, for fear of really angering Uchiha Madara. Facing the two people's unconvincing eyes, Uchiha Madara was real, and he was almost laughed at. 0. For flowers. But in the end, Uchiha Madara could only sigh helplessly. After all, this kind of thing cannot be solved by Uchiha Madara in a few words. This is simply a kind of prejudice in the bones, and each other is not pleasing to the eye. Just when the atmosphere in the laboratory was a little quiet, Banner glanced at Tony and Steve and asked very bluntly, Captain, do you really think there is no problem in this? This question was obviously on the point, and Steve was speechless when asked, and didn't say a word for a long time. But no matter what, this may be Loki's conspiracy, he wants to confuse us in order to achieve his purpose of starting a war. After a moment of silence, Steve said. 0. After saying these words, Steve sighed helplessly, and then prepared to leave. Anyway, we just need to find the Rubik's Cube. After saying this, Steve opened the door of the laboratory and left angrily. Seeing Steve leave, Uchiha Madara didn't even want to chase after him. Times have changed after all, and Uchiha Madara wants Steve to grow up too. Sometimes not everyone can be trusted, even people in the same camp, after all, everyone has their own little juju in their hearts. The situation today is obviously very different from that during World War II. During World War II, everyone's goals were very consistent. In the end, the unification is to deal with the Hydra, so even if there are some slight differences of opinion, they can be suppressed for the common goal of each other. But now it is clear that everyone does not have a completely consistent goal, after all, not every time there will be a Chidori army. Rather than telling Steve the cruel truth directly, Uchiha Madara wanted Steve to figure it out for himself. Looking at the back of Steve leaving, Tony's face showed an unreasonable expression. Is this the friend my father has been thinking about all the time? Tony's tone was full of displeasure. Whether you admit it or not, it's the truth. Uchiha Madara said in a joking tone. Chapter 339 Advertisement. Chapter 339 After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Tony showed a desperate expression on his face, which made both Uchiha Madara and Banner laugh. But anyway, Steve is right about Loki. Loki is really insidious and cunning. Uchiha Madara frowned and said that Loki was indeed a big trouble. He does have a scary bomb, but sooner or later he will blow himself up, Tony said in a nonchalant tone. In the face of such Tony, Uchiha Madara could only sigh helplessly, but Uchiha Madara knew very well that Loki still had cards in his hand. It would be great if things were as simple as you said. Uchiha Madara shook his head and said helplessly. Look, we just have to wait and watch the show, Tony said in a very self-sufficient tone of 5 or 70 letters, as if he had expected Loki's embarrassment. Forget it, I think it's better for me to read the newspaper. Banner smiled at Uchiha Madara and Tony jokingly. I think you may not have the time, maybe you will go into battle with us. Uchiha Madara touched his chin and said thoughtfully. But for this possibility, Banner is insensitive and he doesn't want to summon the Hulk at all. Forget it, I don't have any armor to wear. Banner shook his head and refused very firmly. Banner said these words in a self-deprecating tone. It seems that Banner has indeed adjusted his mentality during this time. Otherwise, Banner's character in the past would not have said such words at all. However, this was indeed a scar for Banner, so when he spoke, a wry smile appeared on Banner's face. I feel like I'm insane, standing naked in front of everyone, Banner said in a disappointed tone. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara pointed at Tony who was standing beside him and said, then look at him, his body is full of shrapnel and he has been running towards his heart. Hearing this, Banner glanced at Tony curiously. After all, this is a relatively hidden thing, so no one except the closest people knows about it. Advertisement, yes, but this little halo has helped me, it has become a part of my body, not just armor, Tony said proudly. Because you have learned to control it. Banner smiled and replied with a very good temper. That's because Tony has found a way, Uchiha Madara said meaningfully to Banner. Faced with this statement, Banner smiled, then shook his head slightly bitterly and said, I'm not quite the same as him. After saying this, Banner immersed himself in various data again. Uchiha Madara swiped his finger and turned off all the data. It's nothing different. To be honest, you were baptized with such a powerful gamma ray, and you were bound to die. Uchiha Madara said very directly. So what? Maybe that guy, I mean the Hulk, saved me? Banner asked rhetorically, unhappy. Obviously, Banner has not been able to look at another character in his body with admiration until now, and his eyes are full of resistance. That's fine, Uchiha Madara replied. Then why did he save me? Banner demanded. No one knows the answer, and Uchiha Madara can't give a definite answer. He can only say, maybe it will be known someday. I don't think you like this answer, Banner said with a wry smile. After looking at Banner, Uchiha Madara quickly looked away. After all, this matter was too painful and complicated for Banner. Uchiha Madara felt that he couldn't get involved in the things in the laboratory, so he left after observing for a while. Originally Uchiha Madara was going to find Steve, but he ran into Coulson just after going out. Coulson invited Uchiha Madara to talk to Thor. After all, on the entire aircraft carrier, Thor obviously gave Uchiha Madara some face. Because of Loki's incident, Thor's eyes now showed a bit of fatigue, and after seeing Uchiha Madara, a smile appeared on his face. I haven't thanked you properly for the previous things. Without your help, it is very likely that my friends would all be in Loki's hands, Thor said gratefully. Advertisement. It's just a trivial matter. Facing Thor's gratitude, Uchiha Madara shook his head indifferently. It's just a small matter. I'm mainly for the residents of that small town, they are the most innocent. Uchiha Madara replied indifferently. By the way, how is your girlfriend now? Loki seems to have met her. Uchiha Madara asked uncertainly, as if remembering something. Hearing this question, Thor's face showed a bitter smile, and then Coulson interjected very naturally. Don't worry, Miss Jane has been invited to be a private consultant, and the commission is quite remote, Coulson said. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara frowned, but seeing the expression on Coulson's face, Uchiha Madara showed a sudden realization. Don't worry, S.H.I.E.L.D. will definitely ensure her safety, and there will be no problems. Coulson assured this. Since Coulson had promised so, Thor didn't say much, just nodded with a flat face. I don't know how Eric is doing now. It's definitely not accidental that Loki can take people away, Thor said with some concern. This is for sure, because Selvig is alone. This place has been completely changed. Coulson sighed and answered. I think it's more appropriate to keep it as it is, Uchiha Madara said thoughtfully. Hearing this, Thor also nodded in agreement with a face full of 1.1, then walked to the window and stared into the distance. The last time I came to Earth has already caused Loki's dissatisfaction. This time it's because of me. It's probably another tough battle, Thor said in a somewhat sad tone. To be honest, even if it's not Loki, the Earth will encounter other problems. After all, the Earth is really vulnerable in the eyes of other planets. Uchiha Madara said very bluntly. It's like you've been to other planets? Thor looked at Uchiha Madara with some curious eyes and asked. Of course I've been there, why can't I go? Uchiha Madara asked with a calm smile. Hearing this, Thor's face really showed a very surprised expression. After all, I have been to the Earth twice, and I suddenly understand the level of technology on the Earth. Chapter 340 Communication, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 340 Communication. But there are many people in this place, and there are only a few people who know the identity of Uchiha Madara, so Uchiha Madara doesn't want to talk about it too much. So when Thor talked about this topic, Uchiha Madara quietly changed the subject. The big world will always encounter many wonderful things. You should have been to more planets, right? Uchiha Madara said, pretending to be curious. In fact, Thor is not a very thoughtful person. He just heard the topic of Uchiha Madara and naturally followed it. I haven't been to many planets, and I mainly stay in the realm of the gods. Thor laughed heartily and said a little embarrassedly. Uchiha Madara was also relieved to see that Thor's attention was distracted and he did not continue to dwell on the previous topic. This is completely different from what I imagined, Thor said with some emotion. So what? What do you imagine the Earth looks like? Uchiha Madara asked curiously. But upon hearing this question, a slightly embarrassed smile appeared on Thor's face, and he didn't answer for a long time. 05 Seeing Thor's expression, there is still something that Uchiha Madara doesn't understand. It's not a good impression after all. Since Thor didn't want to say it, Uchiha Madara didn't have any interest in breaking the casserole. I was too narrow-minded before, no wonder my father didn't think I was a qualified successor, Thor said indifferently. Although Thor can be very reckless at times, Uchiha Madara has to admit that Thor has some merits. Being able to recognize mistakes and correct them is something that many people can't do, Uchiha Madara said to Thor with a sincere face. Hearing Uchiha Madara's comforting words, Thor's face also showed a very sincere smile. When I was young and ignorant, I used to yearn for war very much, and felt that war was an expression of strength, Thor said in a low voice. Advertisement probably thinking of the Chitauri Legion that Loki will bring over this time, and feeling that there will also be a war on Earth, so Thor has some insight to say such words. But Uchiha Madara thinks there is no need to be so pessimistic. After all, the war has not yet started. There's no need to be so sentimental. The war has not yet begun. 35 Uchiha Madara said calmly. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Thor turned his gaze over, and Uchiha Madara smiled at Thor calmly. Our purpose is the Cosmic Cube. Can you ask the whereabouts of the Cosmic Cube from Loki's mouth? Uchiha Madara asked curiously. But hearing this, Thor's face showed a wry smile. I don't know, Loki's mind is unfathomable, and Loki not only desires power, what he wants to do is to get revenge on me, Thor said with some sadness. In fact, it can be seen from the previous ones that no matter what Loki does, at least in Thor, he still regards Loki as his brother. Nothing can stop Loki's ambition, no matter the cost, Thor said with certainty. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara couldn't help but chuckle. In so many years of practice, Uchiha Madara has seen too many people. A lot of people are like this until they pay a very painful price. Uchiha Madara said in a very calm tone, as if to state a fact. Is there anything I need to do? Thor asked directly to Uchiha Madara. Instead of asking me what you need to do, think about what you are willing to do, 99 Uchiha Madara said meaningfully. Now Loki is a prisoner, Thor said to Uchiha Madara with a serious face. Just when Uchiha Madara was about to speak, Fury's voice came from not far away. But how do I feel that he is the only person on this aircraft carrier who doesn't want to leave? Fury walked in front of Thor, looked into Thor's eyes, and said very seriously. Judging from Loki's performance before, Fury's remarks were not without reason, so Thor couldn't say anything to refute, and he fell into thinking unconsciously. All were silent, giving Thor time to think about the matter. Advertisement. At this time, Uchiha Madara noticed that Fury reached out and touched the Bluetooth headset on his ear, and then Fury's face changed, and he rushed out. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Madara naturally understood that something must have happened, so Uchiha Madara directly followed Fury's pace. Originally thought there was something wrong with Loki, but Uchiha Madara saw that Fury rushed in the direction of the laboratory. After going to the laboratory, Fury was relieved to see Tony and Banner with a leisurely look. Mr. Stark, I thought you should be working very hard now? Fury asked while looking at Tony. We have been working very hard, and we will soon be able to find the whereabouts of the Rubik's Cube. Tony said calmly, not at all afraid of Fury's cold face. At this moment, some changes suddenly appeared on the screen. After Tony glanced at it, he directly put his eyes on Fury. What is the second order thing? Your shield has so many secrets, Tony said 570 carelessly. To be honest, Tony didn't think his master had any secrets at first, but he just had an addiction. But after Tony uttered the word, Uchiha noticed a slight change in Fury's face. Before Fury could say anything, there was another hurried footstep outside the door. Steve walked in with a weapon-like thing in his hand, and threw the thing directly on the table. The second order is that shield uses the cosmic Rubik's Cube to make weapons, Steve said with a gloomy face. Sorry, the computer stuff is too complicated for me, I prefer a more direct approach, 5. After hearing Steve's words, Fury's expression turned pale, but he was still trying to refute. Listen to Steve, we are now studying the use of the energy of the Rubik's Cube to make weapons, but that doesn't mean, Fury said urgently. However, before Fury's words were finished, he was interrupted by Uchiha Madara. Seeing what was cracked on Tony's screen, Uchiha Madara sighed and turned the screen directly to Fury. Sorry Nick, can you explain it to me? Uchiha Madara's tone revealed a hint of impatience. Chapter 341 Disagreement, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 341 Disagreement. I found that I was wrong, Director, the world has not changed at all. Steve's tone was full of disappointment. At this time, Natasha also brought Thor in, it seems that everyone is complete now. Do you know about this? Uchiha Madara asked directly to Natasha. However, Natasha did not directly answer Uchiha Madara's question, but turned her attention to Banner on the side. However, this attitude has already explained everything, and no denial represents an acknowledgement in another sense. It seems that this is already a tacit understanding of S.H.I.E.L.D. Doctor, do you want to leave here? Natasha asked inexplicably. I shouldn't have been here, I should stay away from here, Banner replied lukewarm. Loki is manipulating you. Natasha looked straight into Banner's eyes and said very seriously. Looking at Natasha's expression, it doesn't seem like she's joking, she must have gotten some news. However, Banner is a living person, and naturally it is not something that S.H.I.E.L.D. can just come and go, so Banner directly ignored Natasha's words. Then what are you doing now? I won't leave because of your sudden nervousness, Banner said very firmly. Then Banner walked to Uchiha Madara's side, pointed to the screen, and some angrily looked at Fury and the others. Can you explain why such weapons of mass destruction are made? Banner said angrily. In the face of such questioning, the surrounding air was somewhat forbidden, and the atmosphere was very bad, and Fury did not speak for a long time. Then Fury took a deep breath, turned to Thor and said, because of him. It was the sudden accusation that made Thor a little surprised, and some incredulously pointed at himself and asked, me? But now Fury has no intention of paying attention to Thor at all, and instead focuses his attention on Uchiha Madara and others. We've seen all kinds of turmoil that aliens have arisen on Earth a long time ago. Before Thor, they almost flattened an entire town, Fury said seriously. Advertisement These things are relatively secret, basically, except for Fury's henchmen and Uchiha Madara, no one knows about them at all. Therefore, when they heard Fury speak, the expressions on everyone's faces were very serious. There are many other civilizations in the universe, and we are far less powerful than them. This is the truth, so Uchiha Madara did not refute it, but just listened carefully. My people all want to live in peace with the people of Earth, Thor couldn't help but retort. But you are not the only alien life, not the only threat, There are too many creatures stronger than us in the universe. 35 Fury said very seriously. These creatures are simply not governed by anyone, and we must have the ability to protect ourselves. But for this statement, Thor does not seem to be very accepting. But it is precisely because you use the universe cube to make such a weapon that Loki is attracted, Thor said loudly with some excitement. It was all a signal that the Earth was ready for advanced warfare. 35. Obviously, Thor did not agree with Fury's move, and there was inevitably some excitement in his words. But at this moment, Fury still believes that there is nothing wrong with what he has done. This is completely helpless, we must be prepared, Fury said very insistently. What is this, another nuclear threat? Tony interjected. But this statement obviously made Fury a little dissatisfied, and Fury turned his head and glared at Tony. Mr. Stark, please don't forget the history of the Stark family, Fury said angrily. What's the situation? Why is the spear pointing at me now, and what does it have to do with me? Tony replied innocently. Isn't that in line with your idea? You always want to be the center of attention, Steve said with a cold snort. Anyway, I think, facing such a chaotic situation, Thor wanted to express his thoughts. But before the words were spoken, they were interrupted by Fury. Advertisement. If someone comes to make trouble on your planet, I think you will be more extreme than me, Fury retorted with a displeased face. Don't you trust your guardians? Thor couldn't help raising his voice. Why are you so naive? S.H.I.E.L.D. will monitor all potential threats, Natasha rolled her eyes and said. As Captain America considered dangerous, Banner, who had been standing by the side very calmly, couldn't help but speak. Backquote. Everyone is. Natasha said naturally. Anyway, the people in this room were basically arguing, and there is no logic at all. Uchiha Madara only felt that there seemed to be hundreds of ducks screaming in his ears, and Uchiha Madara's head hurt because of the noise. In the end, Uchiha Madara was really impatient. He reached out and patted the console of the plate hard, making a very big noise. After hearing the movement made by Uchiha Madara, the others were stunned for a moment and then finally quieted down, and turned their attention to Uchiha Madara in a unified way. Enough. Can we shut up now? Are we now like a team? No, we can only create chaos together, Uchiha Madara said coldly. Yes, we are like a ticking time bomb, Banner said. When Uchiha Madara spoke, Fury didn't say anything, but after hearing Banner's words, the expression on Fury's face suddenly turned cold. You'd better not interrupt. Li Zhao's. Fury's eyes widened and he looked at Banner with a very fierce expression and said. Why can't he vent? Tony sneered and retorted to Fury with disdain. Why don't you know? Don't make trouble for me. Steve patted Tony's hand away and said very unhappily. While Steve and Tony were talking, Uchiha Madara gave Fury a warning look. Banner is the person I invited here, you'd better show some respect, Uchiha Madara said to Fury with no face at all. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Fury's expression finally subsided, and Banner glanced at Uchiha Madara gratefully. But at this time, Steve and Tony were already quarreling, and they had already risen to personal attacks. If you don't have your armor, what are you? Steve said it without any respect. Chapter 342 Endurance Limit, for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 342 The Limit of Endurance. Just after talking to Fury, he heard such a sentence from Steve's mouth, and Uchiha Madara knew something was wrong as soon as he heard it. Sure enough, when Steve's voice just fell, Tony's face immediately turned gloomy, and he stared at Steve with resentment. Billionaire, genius scientist, better than you, Tony responded very strongly. I know a lot of people, even if they have nothing, they are dozens of times older than you, Steve said to Tony unceremoniously. I've seen your profile, you only care about yourself and will never make sacrifices, at least you won't let your comrades climb over your shoulders under the barbed wire. When Steve said these words, Tony stood in front of Steve, staring at Steve tightly. If it were me, I would cut the barbed wire directly, Tony sneered, retorting indifferently. For Tony's answer, Steve sneered, as if he had already expected Tony to say such a thing. Sure enough, besides being able to play these clever tricks, what else would you do? Steve's tone was full of disdain. Maybe you won't be a threat, but it's better not to pretend to be a hero, You don't deserve it, Steve said to Tony in a very contemptuous tone. Hero, A hero, like you? You're just an experimenter, with all the extraordinary things you have, which is given by a bottle of serum. Tony leaned in front of Steve and said. These remarks are really heart-wrenching, and everyone unconsciously shut their mouths, daring not to participate in the quarrel between the two. Uchiha Madara also doesn't know why these two people see each other as enemies because it is the first time they meet. But Uchiha Madara is just too impatient with this endless quarrel, and doesn't want to pay attention to these crap at all. Why don't we put on your armor and let's fight, Steve said provocatively. But before Steve could wait for Tony to answer, Thor suddenly burst out laughing. Advertisement, ha ha ha, you humans are really too small, because of such a quarrel, is this still called a team? Thor did not hide his ridicule at all. Enough, you all shut up, I'm really fed up with your face, Uchiha Madara shouted, stopping all quarrels. Although Uchiha Madara didn't hold any positions, he surpassed everyone in his aura. To be honest, although human society is more civilized than the animal world, it is still a world of the jungle. For people who are stronger than themselves, there will be a feeling of surrender from the bottom of their hearts. Therefore, after Uchiha Madara didn't hide his aura at all, other people naturally didn't dare to make trouble, and shut their mouths very obediently. Although the quarrel was stopped by Uchiha Madara, The two were dissatisfied with each other and stared at each other angrily. To be honest, Uchiha Madara wouldn't waste his time dealing with this sort of thing if it was just a little friction. But now is not the time to quarrel at all. Uchiha Madara always thought Steve was a very mature person, but this time Steve really disappointed Uchiha Madara. Tony didn't get much better either. Uchiha Madara didn't understand what kind of hatred there was, so the two people could quarrel like this on the eve of the war. But in the end, Uchiha Madara didn't ask about the contradiction between the two, but just glanced at the two with some disappointment. To be honest, I'm very disappointed. I always feel that you two are mature people and I don't need to say anything more, Uchiha Madara said with a sigh. Under Uchiha Madara's disappointed gaze, both Steve and Tony felt a little embarrassed and couldn't say a word for a long time. I don't care AFBB what personal grievances you have, but now is the time to start the war, and all grievances must be put back. 99. This is actually a very simple truth, but unfortunately, both Steve and Tony completely forgot about this. So when Uchiha Madara pointed out this fact very directly, the expressions on both Steve's and Tony's faces were a little embarrassed. Advertisement Steve and Tony's heads were getting lower and lower, and they couldn't even look Uchiha Madara in the eyes. Uchiha Madara was also slightly relieved about the attitude of the two, and at least he knew that he was embarrassed, which means that it was not completely hopeless. But Uchiha Madara, who should be criticized, still has to make it clear, lest Steve and Tony germinate again. Uchiha Madara has no patience to resolve the conflict between two people like a kindergartner. For Uchiha Madara, it was a complete waste of precious time. So no matter what kind of thoughts are in his heart, the expression on Uchiha Madara's face is as serious as ever. Remember what I told you before, Steve, I don't know where you got this sense of superiority? Uchiha Madara said with a serious face. Hearing Uchiha Madara's rude words, Steve's face also turned a lot paler, and he looked at Uchiha Madara at a loss. I didn't mean it that way, it's just that his attitude was very bad, and he didn't really want to solve this matter at all, Steve explained with some helplessness. Under pressure from Uchiha Madara, Steve nodded awkwardly. Don't be too happy, I haven't told you about your problem yet, Uchiha Madara said with a cold face. But before Tony was complacent for long, Uchiha Madara put his eyes on Tony. This statement is very different from what Steve has always held, but Steve doesn't know how to refute it, so he can only stand there with his head down. But since that has been said, it means that Uchiha Madara doesn't want to listen to Steve's explanation at all. Hearing Uchiha class say Steve's words, Tony thought that Uchiha Madara was on his side, and unconsciously put on a smug look on his face. So, the attitude is not good, and then? Did he do the things that were handed to him? Uchiha Madara looked Steve in the eyes and asked. Isn't that alright, and what does the attitude prove? As long as he completes what he should do. Uchiha Madara rolled his eyes and said very bluntly. But for Uchiha Madara's cold face, Tony seems to be immune, still smiling. Chapter 343 Tearing the Face, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 343. With a character like yours, you will suffer a lot sooner or later, so don't give me a smile, Uchiha Madara said unceremoniously. The person who can make me suffer is probably not born yet, even if it is really going to suffer, let's talk about it after eating, Tony said indifferently. To be honest, Uchiha Madara also felt very helpless in the face of a hobmeat like Tony, since Uchiha Madara could only sigh. Then Uchiha Madara didn't say any more. After all, it was up to Tony to decide what to do, and Uchiha Madara couldn't decide Tony's attitude. Since it was impossible to change the character that Tony had formed over the years, Uchiha Madara set his sights on Steve's body. To be honest, Steve in Uchiha Madara's memory was a very gentle and sunny youth. No matter what kind of difficulties he faces, he is very methodical, and he never takes his anger out on others easily. But this time Uchiha Madara felt that the Steve he remembered was just an illusion. The Steve who appeared in front of him now was too unfamiliar and too disappointing. Under the gaze of Uchiha Madara, Steve's eyes were full of embarrassment, and he didn't understand what Uchiha Madara was trying to say. But in the end, Uchiha Madara just sighed helplessly, looking at Steve with nostalgia and a very complicated emotion written in his eyes. I don't know how to describe this feeling, Steve, you have become so unfamiliar, I feel like I have never known you, Uchiha Madara said in a very disappointed tone. To be honest, Steve never saw such an emotion on Uchiha Madara's face either. In Steve's memory, Uchiha Madara has always been confident and strong, and it seems that all the difficulties can't suffocate him. Seeing Uchiha like this, a feeling of self-blame flooded Steve's heart. Steve felt that it was because of his own mess that Uchiha Madara felt so distressed. Advertisement Just when Steve wanted to explain, he was stopped by Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara shook his head and said that he didn't need any explanation. That's it, you don't need to tell me anything, as long as you think it's okay for you to do it, Uchiha Madara said very directly. But this attitude frightened Steve, at least in Steve's view, he felt that it was Uchiha Madara who no longer wanted to care about his own performance. For such a misunderstanding, Uchiha Madara didn't want to waste any more energy to explain, so he didn't speak, just let Steve be at a loss. Although Uchiha Madara has also lost his temper before, his attitude is still relatively mild, and he did not express his disgust very bluntly. So the others didn't take it to heart at first, until Uchiha took this outburst. Although Uchiha Madara's attitude was very mild this time, he didn't even speak loudly. But it was this attitude that made the others even more afraid, so this time the others were standing on the side very quietly, not daring to speak at will. After Uchiha Madara didn't speak, the surrounding air suddenly fell silent, and it seemed that they could hear each other's breathing. In the end, Fury didn't seem to be right about the current atmosphere, so he made a color at Uchiha Madara and opened his mouth to ease the current atmosphere. Actually, Steve is too urgent, and there is no malicious intent. Fury opened his mouth to smooth things out. But Uchiha Madara is not giving face at all now, and he just sneered when he heard this. Exactly what kind of thoughts they have, they know in their own minds, and they don't need you to say more. Uchiha Madara said without giving face at all. After becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury probably hasn't been so humiliated, but Fury has to admit that he still has a lot to rely on Uchiha Madara. Therefore, although he was a little unhappy, Fury didn't dare to say anything, and could only accompany a smile. The common goal now is to get back the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Let's put other things aside first, Fury said with a smile. It would have been better not to mention this, but the mention of Uchiha Madara made him angrier. Advertisement. You should know who caused all this. If you didn't open Pandora's box, where would there be so much shit to do? Uchiha said with a sneer. 0. For flowers. For Uchiha Madara's disrespectful behavior, Fury took a deep breath, endured it for a long time and finally couldn't bear it. After all, in Fury's view, everything he did was for the safety of all mankind, and there was nothing wrong at all. Isn't this thing explained many times? It's all for the good of everyone, we just defend in advance. 39 Fury said very stubbornly. In fact, Uchiha Madara is also very clear that it is impossible to tell Fury about these things, but when he hears such an excuse, he still feels angry. What is it for? You know best in your own heart, don't treat everyone as a fool. Uchiha Madara said with a sneer, without giving any face. This matter was originally a ghost in Fury's heart, but now that his thoughts were spoken out so frankly by Uchiha Madara, Fury's face became even more difficult. Probably really pampered for a long time, Frith forgot about Uchiha Madara's temper. Since it is an internal matter of S.H.I.E.L.D., you have the ability to solve it yourself. Don't ask us for help with this matter now. Uchiha Madara sneered and said mockingly. Probably did not expect that the two big bosses would actually quarrel, and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to do. For this statement, Uchiha Madara just sneered and didn't take Fury in the slightest. This is an internal matter of S.H.I.E.L.D. The natural cosmos Rubik's Cube is in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we have the final say on how to develop it. Fury replied very strongly. I think what Mr. Uchiha Madara said is quite right. This is the responsibility of S.H.I.E.L.D., Banner said in agreement. However, Uchiha class was not frightened, and glared back with no falsehood. After hearing Uchiha Madara's straightforward words, Fury couldn't control his anger, and quarreled with Uchiha Madara directly, without any intention of holding back. There is no way to get Uchiha Madara, but B. Benefree thinks he has nothing to be afraid of. These words are a bit heartbreaking, and Fury really has no way to solve the situation in front of him, he can only look at Uchiha Madara fiercely. Chapter 344 Scepter, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 344 Scepter. This is our own business. I think Dr. Banner, you should not interrupt first. Although the mouth was very polite, Fury's face was not good. Since it's your own business, why did you invite me back in the first place? This has nothing to do with me at all. Banner retorted unceremoniously. To be honest, Banner's character is really the mildest of them all, but now it's clear that Banner is also angry. What Fury did this time was really not very authentic. He had to use Banner's ability here, but he looked down on Banner at the same time, and he didn't know if Fury's brain was flooded. In any case, Banner was called by Uchiha for help, and his relationship with the live broadcast class and Banner was also very good. Now Fury's practice of 573 is completely before the face of Uchiha Madara is stomped on the ground. Uchiha Madara had already reminded Fury, so seeing Fury's move, Uchiha Madara was already very angry, which was just adding fuel to the fire. I reminded you long ago, this is the person I brought, what qualifications do you have to yell at him? Uchiha Madara looked at Fury coldly and said very unhappily. It could be seen that Uchiha Madara was really angry this time, and Fury didn't dare to say anything more. Fury just took a deep breath, suppressed his inner irritability, and then forced a smile to Uchiha Madara. Sorry, I may be in a hurry, but this is really S.H.I.E.L.D.'s own business, and Dr. Banner is not suitable to intervene, Fury explained. Seeing that Fury was still stubborn, Uchiha Madara sighed a little irritably. I don't understand how Fury, who looked very smart before, became what he is now. Is this an internal affair of S.H.I.E.L.D.? It's already everyone's business, and I'm not a S.H.I.E.L.D. person, so why did you invite me over? Uchiha Madara's tone was full of displeasure, and she didn't understand how Fury could be so pedantic. But on this matter, Fury was extremely persistent and completely unwilling to step back. Advertisement. After a few words, he found that it didn't make sense at all. Uchiha Madara's face became more and more ugly, and he wished to fight with Fury and wake Fury completely. The atmosphere in the laboratory is getting worse and worse, and it is almost on the verge of a trigger, but at this time, Fury is actually starting to add fuel to the fire. Agent Romanov, escort Dr. Banner away first. Fury took a deep breath and said to Natasha. From this decision, you can see Fury's thoughts. It is nothing more than that Banner continues to be here, and it is very likely that he will not be able to control his emotions and summon the Hulk. Therefore, I thought of letting Banner leave first, but such a move completely angered Banner, making Banner with a very good temper unable to resist. Where are you taking me? Isn't my room already occupied? Banner said with some yin and yang. That cell is just in case. Fury had some embarrassed explanations, but it was obvious that such an explanation was a complete sophistry in Banner's view. You want to kill me, but it's completely impossible. Banner suddenly became agitated and raised his voice. I tried it myself, if I swallowed a gun and committed suicide, but the guy spit out the bullet. Speaking of this, Banner's mood was a little low. I have a very good life by myself, but you have to drag me into this farce. Although he has always been very talkative, it does not mean that Banner really has no temper at all. Now that all the troubles have come to this, Banner did not hide his unhappiness and directly told all his dissatisfaction. The appearance of the honest man suddenly getting angry is indeed a little scary, and the identity of Banner is very special. Everyone was afraid to lead the Hulk out, so everyone consciously closed their mouths, just watching all this quietly, not daring to say anything more. Although Uchiha Madara can stop Banner, in Uchiha Madara's view, proper venting is good for physical and mental health. Therefore, Uchiha Madara just stared at the farce in front of him with a calm expression, without any intention to stop it. Thinking of talking about Banner's emotions, he became more and more excited, and directly picked up the scepter placed on the stage. Advertisement originally, Uchiha Madara was still watching very calmly, but when he noticed that Banner picked up the scepter, Uchiha Madara could not stand idly by. After all, Uchiha Madara didn't really want Banner to become the Hulk and destroy the entire aircraft carrier. Banner, calm down, you can put down the scepter in your hand first, Uchiha Madara said to Banner in a very calm voice. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Banner glanced at the scepter in his hand as if he had just woken up from a big dream, and put it down. After coming out like this, if you can't find that this scepter is weird, then it's no different from a fool. Thinking that this scepter was taken from Loki, and Loki used this scepter to control the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Dr. Selvig. Uchiha Madara doesn't seem to be too surprised by the role of this scepter, which obviously has the ability to confuse people. Everyone was very irritable before, and maybe this scepter is also credited. This matter is too important, so naturally it is impossible for Thor to solve it alone. Everyone is completely dispatched, wanting to get back the Rubik's Cube as soon as possible. A target with a matching degree of more than 95% has been found, and it is obvious that there is a great probability that it is the universe Rubik's Cube. Others obviously thought of this, and all stared at the scepter with suspicious eyes. But before leaving, Thor looked at the others seriously. Banner ran to the screen with a look of urgency. Uchiha Madara's eyes were better, and he had already seen the words 1.1 on the screen. Don't be kidding, even if you can beat other people, but Loki definitely has a back move, you can't beat Loki, Uchiha Madara said very directly. So now everyone naturally doesn't care about quarreling, and just wants to get the universe Rubik's Cube as soon as possible. The Rubik's Cube belongs to Asgard. Humans can't control it at all. Let me go, Thor said seriously. But before I could study it carefully, I heard a beeping sound from the instrument on the side, and the expressions on everyone's faces changed. Chapter 345 The aircraft carrier was attacked, for automatic subscription. Advertisement Chapter 345 The aircraft carrier was attacked. Everyone's movements were very quick to prepare to go to the target location, but at this time, the aircraft carrier suddenly shook very violently. Uchiha Madara felt an explosion. Someone had already shot the aircraft carrier. Normally, this is simply impossible. After all, this aircraft carrier used special means, basically it can be said to be invisible. But even under such circumstances, the location of the aircraft carrier was still accurately discovered. Uchiha Madara wouldn't believe it if it wasn't tricky. After thinking about it for a while, he could also guess the person who was about to do it. Basically, except for the insiders of S.H.I.E.L.D., other people can't get any news at all, and the identity of this insider must not be low. Agent Patton obviously fits this profile perfectly, a S.H.I.E.L.D. employee and Fury's confidant, Admiral, so it's no surprise to know this news. Sure enough, Fury soon received a call from an agent saying that one of the engines had been attacked. If one more engine is destroyed, the entire carrier will be destroyed. Now it is not only necessary for Bamboo's next engine to be destroyed, but also to repair the already destroyed O5 engine. So this task was directly handed over to Tony and Steve. After all, Tony's familiarity with these machines is unparalleled. Because of the trust in Steve and Tony, Uchiha Madara did not follow the past. Uchiha Madara is more worried about Banner than Slive and Tony. What happened just now was so sudden that Uchiha Madara noticed that Banner and Natasha had disappeared. You must know that such a huge movement has affected the mind by the scepter before adding it, so Banner is likely to be unable to control his emotions and summon the Hulk. If the Hulk appears, then Loki's strategy will succeed, and sometimes the aircraft carrier will really be completely over. Therefore, Uchiha Madara didn't care about other things, and hurriedly went to find the location of Banana Natasha. Advertisement however, on the control of people's hearts, Loki is simply a genius. When Uchiha Madara just set off, he heard a loud roar from a certain position of the aircraft carrier. This roar Uchiha Madara was too familiar, it was made by the Hulk after his transformation. After realizing this, Uchiha Madara's complexion immediately changed. Unexpectedly, it was still a step too late, allowing Loki's plan to succeed. But now I can't bear to be angry anymore, and more importantly, we need to solve Banner quickly, and we must not let Banner destroy the aircraft carrier at will. You must know that the Hulk's lethality is still very large, and ordinary soldiers used to go to death. So when encountering the agents investigating the situation, Uchiha Madara waved his hand directly to stop their actions, and walked alone in the direction of the sound. The Hulk, who has now lost his mind, is constantly destroying the contents of the aircraft carrier. Uchiha Madara can find the location of the Hulk by listening to the sound. But the moment he saw Uchiha Madara, the Hulk clenched his fists and rushed up. Although Uchiha Madara's strength can kill the Hulk in 3 or 2 strokes, but after all, Banner is still a teammate, so Uchiha Madara is naturally impossible to kill the killer. But the energy contained in the moves Uchiha Madara launched was too terrifying. Therefore, Uchiha Madara is completely fighting hand-to-hand in Banner. After all, if Uchiha Madara takes action, the entire aircraft carrier will be completely cold if not careful. I have to say that the Hulk is indeed very rough and fleshy. Uchiha Madara slammed into the Hulk with punches, and he didn't feel anything. However, after a few hands-on, Uchiha Madara has almost figured out the tolerance range of the Hulk. Now the Hulk is completely pressed to the ground by Zebo Madara, but the range in the aircraft carrier is too small, so it can't be used at all. He also had to worry about not completely destroying the aircraft carrier, so Uchiha Madara contacted Fury and asked Fury to control a drone to the designated location. Under the command of Uchiha Madara, the drone fired all the bullets into Banner's body, and Banner's attention was immediately drawn to the past. After Uchiha Madara stopped, Banner jumped directly onto the drone, wanting to completely destroy the attack. Want to attack their own aircraft. Advertisement, is it alright? I mean Banner. Thor came over at some point and stared at this scene in a stunned manner. Since he made such a move, it shows that Uchiha Madara must have thought about it in his heart, so he nodded towards Thor with a calm expression. Don't worry, nothing will happen. If you just fight melee'ly, you might not be able to beat him, Uchiha Madara said with a relaxed expression. After hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Thor's face showed a dissatisfied expression. But now the situation is more urgent and there is no time to talk about these things. Uchiha Madara nodded towards Thor. He went to Fury's side. But before they got to the control room, Uchiha Madara and Thor had a very obvious feeling, and now the whole aircraft carrier is falling. Go and see what's going on Loki's side, and leave the rest to me, Uchiha Madara said to Thor, and Uchiha Madara picked up her pace. But on Uchiha Madara's way to the control room, he saw 573 two people fighting together. Seeing the iconic red hair, Uchiha Madara immediately recognized one of them as Natasha. In this case, the identity of another person is also clearly lost, and there is no other candidate except Patton. It can be seen from the action that Natasha seems to be injured, so the action is a little slow, and Patton has always had the upper hand. Uchiha Madara rushed up without saying a word, locked Patton's throat with his arm, and then kicked Patton's leg. Because there was no strength, Barton fell to his knees directly on the ground, and then Uchiha hit Barton's neck with half a hand knife, and Barton fainted directly. After dealing with Patton, Uchiha Madara gave Natasha a little more attention. It was found that Natasha was sweating profusely now, and she was obviously trying to support her, but in this situation, everyone had no time to rest. Thank you, you can go directly if you have anything, just leave it to me here, Natasha said to Uchiha Madara with great discernment. Now is not the time to be polite, Uchiha Madara nodded towards Natasha, and then Uchiha Madara left directly. When he arrived at the control room, Uchiha Madara found that it was a mess, apparently after a considerable battle. Chapter 346 A Mess, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 346 At this time, Uchiha Madara didn't think that a few of them would make a mess in the control room, and he didn't think that their abilities were beyond his imagination. It seems that these few people Uchiha Madara really can't underestimate them. It seems that everyone has not taken any advantage, otherwise it is impossible to make a mess in the control room. It is conceivable that they caused such a situation during the fight. Uchiha Madara thinks that this is also how the judiciary suddenly had such a big conflict. It seems that Agent Patton of S.H.I.E.L.D. played a decisive role on the carrier, and it would not have been possible to make the carrier like this without him here. I really didn't expect that Agent Patton had a premeditated plan. It seems that someone really supported him in doing so. Otherwise, how would he have the courage to destroy the entire aircraft carrier into such a mess? Uchiha Madara really didn't expect this person to have such a big influence on him, and he didn't expect that he would make the whole thing such a mess. It seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. has long planned to destroy the aircraft carrier this time, and Uchiha Madara really has no knowledge of this matter. He didn't expect things to get so bad. I didn't expect this matter to be much more complicated than expected, and it seems that there are a lot of people involved here. Now Uchiha Madara really doesn't know where this Patton agent is, and if he catches him, he will never be polite to him. Uchiha Madara really didn't expect Tony to make this matter what it is today. At that time, he felt that he was also very good at mechanics. If he was asked to do this, he would definitely do it flawlessly. I didn't expect things to develop to such a point. It seems that this Patton agent supported by S.H.I.E.L.D. is really powerful. Now seeing that the entire aircraft carrier has been made so vulnerable by a few of them, it seems that these people are really bold, and they dare to destroy even something like the aircraft carrier. Advertisement. Don't they think this is the end of the matter? No one is holding them accountable? Regarding this matter, Uchiha Madara would never let the agent Patton off easily. He really didn't expect him to take such a ruthless shot. He even defeated all these people and destroyed the entire aircraft carrier at the same time. It seems that this matter is really no trivial matter. It is definitely not something he can do alone, and there will definitely be his accomplices to help him, which Uchiha Madara really doubts. Now Uchiha Madara feels that the Hulk is also very scary. If he hadn't helped in the middle, this Patton agent wouldn't have the ability to destroy the entire aircraft carrier like this. Now Uchiha Madara is very angry when he thinks about this Hulk, and he wants to tear him apart, and said to him, "Do you know that this aircraft carrier is really very important to us? Who are you from? Can't tell the difference? I can't wait to cut you into pieces, and I can't understand my heart, hate. You have no ability to stop this matter. Don't put the blame on me. Are you a bit too unreasonable? If you are so capable, why don't you take this matter to yourself?" 5. At this time, Uchiha Madara felt that this Hulk was really damned, and wished he would kill him in seconds now. It seems that Uchiha Madara really does not need to be so polite to this person, what he did is really too much. Sometimes Uchiha Madara thinks that he is really a little ignorant and goes to help out indiscriminately. Now that these things are all useless, it seems that this matter still needs to find an opportunity to find a way to figure it out. It seems that Uchiha Madara really hates these people in front of him, and can't wait to tear them into pieces. Such a thing Uchiha Madara really did not expect such a result, he really has no ability to prevent all this from happening. Seeing such a scene happening in front of his eyes, at this moment he felt that he was really incompetent. Why didn't he have the ability to prevent this from happening? Advertisement: this aircraft carrier is really very important to Uchiha Madara, and he did not expect to be destroyed by those people into what it is today. From the scene in the control room, it can be seen that they have been here for a long time, otherwise they would not have caused this place to become what it is today. Uchiha Madara really didn't think that he was still a step late, otherwise such a scene would not have happened here. Because he thinks the boss can fix this matter, and what he didn't expect is much more complicated than he expected, and he really trusts Tony too much. He felt that with his mechanical skills, he would definitely stop this matter, and would not let them easily destroy the aircraft carrier. It seems that some of these things Uchiha Madara really is, the blind eye can see well, seeing such a result happening in front of her eyes. Otherwise, it would be impossible to make the aircraft carrier look so ragged. People like them are simply too damn it. If Uchiha Madara catches them, they will definitely not take care of them easily. At this time, Uchiha Madara felt that the more she thought about this matter, the more useless she felt. How could she be so stupid and make such a low-level mistake? Now that this aircraft carrier has been turned into what it is today, there is really no way to repair it, and said to Tony. I feel that what they did is so outrageous. Is there really no one to rectify them? Now Uchiha Madara thinks that this aircraft carrier is really deliberately destroyed. It seems that Uchiha Madara must investigate this matter clearly, and will never let the person who destroyed the aircraft carrier be spared. In fact, Uchiha Madara and Tony are really well aware of this matter, knowing that these people deliberately sabotaged this aircraft carrier. Backquote. Look at the trouble in front of you, there is really no way to end it. Now you can take a good look at whether this aircraft carrier is worth repairing. If it can be repaired. Li Jiaohao. Take this one. It's up to you. I also checked around the aircraft carrier just now, and I feel that there are really too many damaged places. It is really very difficult to repair it. It seems that they really did this on purpose. It really makes Uchiha Madara feel that he is really incompetent. Why can't he even control such a scene? Could it be that these people's imaginations have surpassed him? Chapter 347. Come prepared for automatic subscription. Advertisement. Chapter 347. Come prepared. Uchiha Madara felt that this matter was really ingenious, and the wooden beasts are really very clever, otherwise it would be impossible to make this aircraft carrier look like this in an instant. At this time, Uchiha Madara felt that Agent Patton was really very good, and it seemed that this matter was really directly related to him. I saw him sneaking on the aircraft carrier just now. I don't know what system he is destroying, it will definitely paralyze the aircraft carrier system. It seems that this Patton agent is really prepared, his actions are really very suspicious. I really did not expect that he is really very familiar with the system of this aircraft carrier. It seems that he is really very professional, and his methods are also very clever, and he directly removed the Achilles heel of this aircraft carrier. I saw Agent Patton in the control room before, and he never left. It seems that this matter has a direct relationship with him, and this person must not be taken lightly. Otherwise, the entire aircraft carrier would not have been sinking like this. It seems that he really did a lot of small moves here, because the system of the aircraft carrier was completely out of control. Uchiha Madara was really negligent about this matter and left this matter completely in the hands of Tony 573. He didn't expect it to develop to such a serious level. Previously, Uchiha Madara thought that Patton was just a special agent. He didn't expect to have such superb technology, and he was very familiar with the system on the aircraft carrier. Otherwise, it is impossible for him to cause so much damage to the aircraft carrier. It seems that some things are really out of everyone's control. It must be a professional person, otherwise he would never have such a great ability to make the entire aircraft carrier's system out of control. At this time, Uchiha Madara had been looking for Agent Patton on the aircraft carrier, and it was impossible for him to leave the aircraft carrier so soon. Because he had always been there carefully before, and could not be discovered by anyone, but Uchiha Madara had been observing him for a long time, and felt that he was really a bit suspicious. Things are much worse than Uchiha Madara expected, and now Uchiha Madara really regrets it more than anyone else. His thoughts are really too simple, and he really has no more vigilance against them. Advertisement. I feel that this aircraft carrier is not something that ordinary people can move. If you are not familiar with this aircraft carrier, AFBB, he may not be able to destroy his system at all. It seems that Uchiha Madara's idea of this matter is really wrong, and he is very angry, and said to Tony. I was really too careless about the aircraft carrier before, otherwise it would be impossible to make such a mistake. Now I regret that it is really too late, and I can only find a way to fix it. Now you don't need to blame yourself for this matter. Since it has already happened, we will find a way to make up for it. It is up to you to decide what to do. 5. At this moment, Uchiha Madara felt that her head was getting bigger, and she didn't expect such consequences because of her own reasons. I really don't know what he was thinking in his mind. How could such a thing happen in front of him? How could he never think of something? It seems that he really did not take precautions against these people, otherwise such a result would not have occurred. Now Uchiha Madara feels that he really has no face in front of everyone. He has never done things so badly. Now his mind is also blank, and he doesn't know how to do this. People will make mistakes even in a hurry. At this moment, Uchiha Madara suddenly remembered that the Hulk had helped a lot, otherwise, it would not have been possible to make this matter so smoothly. He is really a damned man. If he was caught, he would definitely not be so polite to him. At this moment, Uchiha Madara was really very angry in his heart. He really couldn't tolerate anyone in his eyes. He wished that everyone was caught and cleaned up well. In this case, his heart would also get comfortable. At this time, Uchiha Madara saw a figure who seemed to be walking by his side. He felt that this person was very familiar, and his back seemed to be Agent Patton. It seemed that this stinky boy wanted to run away from him. Uchiha Madara would never give him such a chance, he told him. Isn't what you did just leave it alone? You think about it too simply. I will never let you go easily. It is really difficult for you to escape from my palm. Advertisement. Why do you bring everything on my head indiscriminately? Did you see with your own eyes that I did this? What does it have to do with me? You must not wrong a good person like this. 99. At this time, Uchiha Madara felt that Agent Patton was still in the mood to argue with him here. If he didn't do this, why would he have such a guilty expression? This kind of eyes can't be pretended in front of Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara is really too familiar with people like them, and there is really no need to pretend like this in front of him. At this time, when he saw that Agent Patton wanted to escape from him, he stopped him and gave him a beating. It seemed that Agent Patton had been beaten up, and only then did he regain his senses and realize who had beaten him like this. He stepped forward and kicked Uchiha Madara a few times, and the two of them went around like this, not letting anyone else. It seems that this Patton agent also suffered a loss in front of Uchiha Madara, and was very unconvinced, and said to Uchiha Madara, "What right do you have to hit me like this? Who the hell are you? Who made you do this? You are simply unreasonable. You will definitely not spare you when you wait for me." 5. I beat you for a reason, and it's impossible for me to do it to you for no reason. You are well aware of this matter. Is it necessary for me to explain so much to you? Uchiha Madara felt that the two fought against each other. Although they did not gain any advantage, it seemed that Agent Patton was also very good. People like him have been specially trained, and they are better than ordinary people in terms of technique and kung fu. Before, Uchiha Madara really ignored this person. I didn't think he could play a big role. I didn't expect to destroy the entire aircraft carrier with his own energy. So Uchiha Madara really regretted what happened in front of him. He didn't expect him to play such a big role by himself. He really underestimated him. At this time, Uchiha Madara could feel that this man had been beaten by him and suffered a lot of injuries, and he wondered if he would be able to get up and walk. Chapter 348. Inner and Outer Cooperation Advertisement. Chapter 348. It seems that all things are out of Uchiha Madara's expectations, and things are going to develop to such a bad situation, and now it really makes him a bit unhelpful attitude. It all happened so suddenly that Uchiha Madara was caught off guard. I really didn't expect this aircraft carrier to be destroyed like this now, so that Uchiha Madara really has no way to explain to his superiors. The task this time was really very arduous for him, and he didn't expect things to be much more complicated than he imagined. It seems that the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. really had a plan for this aircraft carrier, otherwise how could they know the specific location of this aircraft carrier? I really didn't expect the signal of this aircraft carrier to be exposed by Agent Patton in this way, otherwise they would not be able to easily find the specific location of this aircraft carrier. Now that nothing can do anything, Uchiha Madara can only find a way to make up for this aircraft carrier. It seems that this S.H.I.E.L.D. and this Hulk really should cooperate inside and outside, otherwise their plan would not have been so thorough. Because of all these things, Uchiha Madara felt that she was very strict. How could it be leaked by others? Now Uchiha Madara is also very strange about this matter. He has been thinking about this matter, and he doesn't know who it is related to. Now that the matter is in front of him, it really makes him a little confused. This Hulk is really too damn it. He really cares about these things indiscriminately. It seems that he is really used by the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. Otherwise, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. wouldn't be able to do this so unknowingly. It seems that they had a premeditated plan for this matter. Otherwise, it is impossible for this giant to join them all of a sudden. Now Uchiha Madara feels that all this is happening in front of his eyes is really very upset, and it is really incredible. It's really hard to imagine how all of this came so suddenly, and now Uchiha Madara can only think of some compensatory measures for this aircraft carrier. Advertisement. I don't know if this aircraft carrier can be repaired. Now I think Tony should have a better understanding of the aircraft carrier system. At least he is very professional in mechanics. We can only have a good communication with him about this matter and see if he has a better way to restore the aircraft carrier, he said to Tony. You just saw that the aircraft carrier was destroyed by the people from the Shenzhen Bureau to what it is today. You see, if there is any value in repairing this matter, you must do your best, otherwise I really have no way to explain it to the superior. You have also seen this matter. The aircraft carrier was severely damaged. I don't know if there is such a certainty that he can be repaired, but I will definitely try my best to find a way to repair this matter. It seems that Tony is not very sure about this matter. Uchiha Madara can't pin all his hopes on him, but he really has no good solution for this matter. I don't know who has the ability to help him repair this aircraft carrier. Now Uchiha Madara is really worried than anyone else. If I knew there was a problem with this aircraft carrier last time, I would definitely ask him. This thing happened so suddenly. Uchiha Madara really did not take precautions, otherwise such a serious thing would not have happened. At this time, Uchiha Madara felt that the aircraft carrier seemed to be sinking. I don't know how long it would last. They have been on this aircraft carrier now. If you don't open the aircraft carrier quickly, there will definitely be danger to your life. At this time, Uchiha Madara is really worried about everyone's safety. It seems that Uchiha Madara thinks this matter is really a bit difficult to hide. It is better to ask his superiors to send a drone to pick them up. Otherwise, their lives are really in danger. At this time, it depends on whether Tony can have the ability to repair this aircraft carrier. In this case, he really can't be punished, and now Uchiha Madara really has no confidence in this matter. In fact, it is the biggest dereliction of duty for Uchiha Madara to have such a thing happen. He has no face to face his superiors. He has never made such a mistake. Advertisement this time, the loss was really serious for him, and now the aircraft carrier seems to have no motivation to move forward. 0. For flowers. It can only float like this on the sea, and it feels like it is dangling, as if it is sinking to the bottom of the sea. At this moment, Uchiha Madara was really panicked. If he can't think of a better way now, he really doesn't know if everyone's lives are in danger. After all, he has direct responsibility for this incident. No matter what, he left everyone safely from this aircraft carrier. Now Uchiha Madara only feels that this Hulk seems to think that he has done a little too much, and he doesn't know where to hide. Uchiha Madara has been looking for him on this aircraft carrier, but he has never seen his shadow. He is just too damn it, and I feel that he really did this thing a little too hastily, otherwise, how could such a situation happen? At this time, Uchiha Madara was really gnashing his teeth at this Hulk, and he could not wait to bite him to death. Because this matter really has nothing to do with him at all. If he hadn't been used by the shield people, he wouldn't have been able to end up like he is today, being chased and killed by Uchiha Madara everywhere. Seeing the Hulk fall into what he is today, he really brought it on himself. People like him really deserve what they deserve, and Uchiha Madara will never show mercy to him. If he didn't help in this matter, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. wouldn't be able to succeed like this. All of this has a direct relationship with him, and he has an inescapable responsibility, he said to Tony. Have you noticed where the Hulk is on the aircraft carrier? I must catch him. I will never let him go unpunished like this. He really went a little too far on this matter. I have been checking the system devices on this aircraft carrier just now, and I have never found this person. You think this matter has a direct relationship with him? I saw him sneakily in the control room before and didn't know what he was doing. Hearing Uchiha Madara say this, Tony thinks that the Hulk really seems a little suspicious, otherwise why is he in the control room all the time? This makes Tony feel very suspicious too. He doesn't know where he came from. Tony doesn't seem to know at all about this person. Chapter 349. Sneaky, for automatic subscription, advertisement. Chapter 349. At this time, Tony suddenly seemed to have a little impression of this person. It seems that this matter has a direct relationship with him, otherwise, why did he suddenly disappear? This makes Tony feel that he is really too suspicious. No wonder Uchiha Madara wants to capture him. It seems that he has an inseparable relationship with him. His identity is really too suspicious, and now everyone really doesn't know anything about him, and they don't know what he does. I think he looks weird and his expression is very suspicious. At least the image on his face doesn't look like a good person. But no one thought that he would be such a person. Maybe he was ignored at the beginning, and he didn't think that he would play such a big role in this aircraft carrier. At this time, Uchiha Madara should have caught him and asked him whether this matter has anything to do with him. It is absolutely impossible to let a good person go easily. It seems that all things Uchiha Madara have to consider in the long run, because more and more people are really involved in this matter. Now Uchiha Madara is really upset. After all, he has a lot of responsibility for this matter. He originally hoped that the aircraft carrier could reach the destination smoothly, but he did not expect such a problem to occur on the way. No one would have thought about this in advance, but it had already happened in front of Uchiha Madara's eyes, and Uchiha Madara would take full responsibility no matter what. Uchiha Madara really didn't know there would be people from S.H.I.E.L.D. on this aircraft carrier. Uchiha Madara was really defenseless. If the identity certificates of the personnel were carefully checked on this aircraft carrier before departure, the situation today would not have occurred. It seems that Uchiha Madara is really responsible for this matter, and regretting it now really can't solve any role. It is better to check the clues who did it. Uchiha Madara really didn't think that Fury from the Shingen Bureau was really too powerful. His move was really vicious. Advertisement. It seems that Uchiha Madara is really incapable of guarding against this person, and did not expect that something would happen to him. As for this matter, Uchiha Madara must find out the truth of the matter and will never frame a good person. As for whether the Hulk has colluded with S.H.I.E.L.D., this matter has not been investigated clearly yet. It seems that this person really has a direct connection with S.H.I.E.L.D. I really didn't think that they were really colluding about this matter. Otherwise, it would be impossible for this matter to be so seamless that Uchiha Madara could not find any clues. Now Uchiha Madara is really too late to regret this matter. Why didn't he check the personnel on the aircraft carrier well before departure? Otherwise the situation like today would never have happened. Now let's see if Tony can fix this aircraft carrier, otherwise he really doesn't know what to do next, and said to him. You carefully check all the systems on the aircraft carrier to see if there is any value in maintenance. If you continue to delay time, the aircraft carrier will sink more and more, and we will all be in danger. I did a careful investigation on the aircraft carrier just now, and I feel that the damage to the aircraft carrier is really too serious. It really takes a lot of time to repair all the systems. How long will it last at sea? 5. Now Uchiha Madara heard Tony say this. The head is big, and now he feels that it should not be called every day, and he has to figure out how to do everything by himself. After all, there is no way to communicate with the outside world on this sea. Now this aircraft carrier has lost all signals, and there is no way to communicate with its superiors. Now Uchiha Madara is really very anxious in his heart, and he doesn't know any good way to get him out of danger here. If this delay continues, the aircraft carrier will sink more and more seriously, and everyone is really in great danger at this moment. Because now this aircraft carrier can't move forward at all, it can only float around like this on the sea, without any sense of direction. Because the entire system of this aircraft carrier has been destroyed, he really can't control it. Uchiha Madara really didn't expect S.H.I.E.L.D. to use such despicable means to do these things. It is simply the worst evil. Advertisement. There is really nothing to end, so now Uchiha Madara pin all his hopes on Tony. This piece of Tony has the ability to completely repair the system of this aircraft carrier. Because the setting of this aircraft carrier is really very complicated, it is definitely not something that can be repaired all at once. After all, Tony's ability is limited as a person. It takes a lot of time for such a large aircraft carrier to take a lot of time. Could it be that Fury and the others of the Shingen Bureau really put their lives at risk? To do this, they had already thought about it, otherwise, they would not have been able to destroy the aircraft carrier by protecting their life like this, which made Uchiha Madara unable to think clearly. Even if people like Uchiha Madara suffer like this, they will also have dangerous things like this. Don't they think they will do such stupid things? Because Uchiha Madara has always thought that these people in S.H.I.E.L.D. are very smart and capable, it is impossible for them to do such a dirty thing. At this time, Uchiha Madara saw a family of unmanned helicopters in the sky. He didn't know if he heard that they were killed here and came to pick them up. Because Uchiha Madara has not figured out this drone, whether it was sent by his superiors or not, Uchiha Madara has no use to figure out. If the home drone is S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury prepared in advance, it is really a bad thing for Uchiha Madara. These 1.1 things Uchiha Madara is just guessing. Let's see who this drone thing is going to help. At this time, when Tony saw the drone, he was very excited and said to Uchiha Madara, "Did you see that drone in the sky? Was it sent by the superior to save us? Do you see him coming in our direction? It must have come to save a few of us. It seems that a few of us are really saved. This matter is really not as simple as we thought. I don't know if this drone has anything to do with this shield, and now we have no way to figure it out, so we can't be so happy at this time." At this time, Tony felt that Uchiha Madara was really overthinking. If he wasn't here to save them, could he still be the one who saved S.H.I.E.L.D.? Chapter 350. What is Hejuxin, for automatic subscription? Advertisement. Chapter 350. What happened this time is really very helpless to Uchiha Madara. He didn't expect things to develop to such a bad level, otherwise he wouldn't be where he is today. All things are Uchiha Madara. He can't put all things on other people's body. Now that this kind of thing has happened, he has to find a way to solve it, and there is no need to blame anyone here. Although Uchiha Madara knows very well that this Hulk has a direct relationship, he has an unshakable responsibility for this matter. He was so strange, Uchiha Madara felt like he had fallen from the sky. Otherwise, how could he suddenly appear in front of her? He had never discovered this person on this aircraft carrier before. This time, I felt that he was someone who sent him here, otherwise he would not be directly responsible for this matter. When things happened, he disappeared suddenly, otherwise Uchiha Madara wouldn't think of him as suspicious. At this time, Uchiha Madara thought that if the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. did not have this Hulk in his connection, they could not have destroyed the aircraft carrier into what it is today. Now Uchiha Madara feels that this matter is really being manipulated by someone behind it, otherwise it would not have been possible to proceed so smoothly, and he really had no sense of defense. He really didn't expect that this matter was really beyond his imagination. He didn't expect that this matter would develop to the point where it is today, otherwise he would not have been unprepared like this. Now Uchiha Madara is very clear in his heart that there is really no need to blame anyone for this matter, but doing things by himself really doesn't require any brains at all. Otherwise, it is impossible for things to be so bad. It is really incompetent for him to let these people succeed so easily. I really didn't expect that the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. were really powerful. What they did was to completely blind Uchiha Madara, so that he didn't notice any loopholes. Advertisement. Uchiha Madara has experienced many things over the years, but she has never missed a beat. What happened this time made him really lose face. He really didn't have the face to face his superiors. It seems that Uchiha Madara really tried to make up for this matter. Otherwise, how would he tell his superiors about this matter? How many people are laughing at him behind his back? I think he is really incompetent, and he can't even handle this little thing. How will he gain a foothold in this industry in the future? At this time, seeing that Tony has been repairing the system on the aircraft carrier, I don't know if he has a way to repair the aircraft carrier system, and said to him, "It seems that I really pinned my hopes on you. Now I really can't blame anyone, and now I don't know about my superiors. It's impossible for us to leak this matter when we encounter such a situation here. Yes, it's really bad for us. Don't worry, I am very clear about this matter. If it is revealed, there is really no way for the two of us to explain it to the superior. I will do my best to repair the aircraft carrier system, and I will try my best to keep us safe." This matter is simple to think about, but it is much more complicated than expected. After all, Tony's ability is limited. Can he take on such a big thing by himself? At this moment, Uchiha Madara is really very worried. After all, the system of this aircraft carrier is very complicated. This system is simply too complicated. If it is not professional personnel, there is no way to maintain it. Uchiha Madara knows this better than anyone else, so he is really worried that the aircraft carrier will continue to rub down. In that case, the few of them are really very dangerous. Uchiha Madara really didn't think that Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. was really too careful, and really didn't expect Uchiha Madara to suffer such a loss, and Uchiha Madara really felt a little ashamed. For so many years, he has never been tricked by others like this, and he feels that he is really stupid. Advertisement. Since this matter is placed in front of Uchiha Madara, little Uchiha Madara has no reason to refuse, and must think of a foolproof plan to make up for this matter. It is absolutely impossible for people like Shield to see his jokes and feel that he is incapable of taking such a responsibility. In fact, Uchiha Madara regretted this matter very much. Why didn't he check the identities of the personnel on the aircraft carrier before departure? Otherwise, such a result would not have been obtained. I really don't know where this Hulk came from, otherwise, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. wouldn't have succeeded so easily. Bai really knew the abilities of these people, and felt that with the abilities of a few of them, it was impossible for him to do such a big thing, and someone would definitely help them secretly. Regarding this matter, Uchiha Madara really underestimated S.H.I.E.L.D. He didn't take them seriously and felt that they were really not his opponents. It seems that what he did this time is really beyond the imagination of Uchiha Madara. Now Uchiha Madara can feel that the aircraft carrier has been sinking, not knowing what the consequences will be. Now he is very worried in his heart, and he is also worried about everyone's safety. If 577 can't think of a way to get the best of both worlds now. They are really worried about their lives, and now Uchiha Madara is very clear in his heart that the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. can only watch his jokes in secret, and will never ask anyone to help them feel that their conspiracy has really succeeded. Uchiha Madara was really caught off guard. They are too insidious and cunning. This time Uchiha Madara really has to get through this difficult time. No matter what, it is impossible for anyone to underestimate him. At this time, Tony saw that Uchiha Madara was also very anxious about this matter, and said to him, "Don't worry, there is no way in the sky, and God will definitely help us. No matter what, I will try my best to find a way to prevent you from losing face in front of your superiors. I know that you will help me no matter what, and I believe in you very much, otherwise I would not have entrusted such an important thing to you to do. At least you were very concerned about the system of this aircraft carrier. You know, so this matter will kill you." For this matter, Uchiha Madara is really very helpless, and now everything on the entire aircraft carrier is counting on Tony alone. In any case, he is relatively clear about the system on the aircraft carrier, at least he is a professional.